Bitcoin, I'm not nervous. I'm the tech that changes what society is. I am money, I create freedom, and I'm limited, so I know what my worth is. I don't ask how high the fee is. I don't open, verifiable blockchain. Hashes and transactions I find in my process. I simplify what I'm handed, I trust with commanded. But under the surface, I feel berserk like a keyboard warrior that's suddenly wordless. Under the surface, was Satoshi ever like, yo, I don't wanna fight big banks. Under the surface, I'm pretty sure I'm worthless if I can't be of service. A bug or a hack, a line in the stack that breaks the camel's back. What breaks the camel's back? It's growth of the fees that'll never stop. Whoa, users that'll leave till we just go bump. Whoa, give it to BCH, their blocks got bigger, and all we got was this damn ticker. Who am I if I can't scale with the bull? If I fall to payments that are slow, and they just won't go. Whoa, fees that'll grow till it's ready to blow. Whoa, give it to Satoshi, blockchain is stronger. See the users throw away the dollar. Who am I if I can't verify it at all? If I falter under the surface, I hide my nerves and it worsens. I worry a central chain will hurt us. Under the surface, the miners will leave. They need fees, lighting will kill this. Under the surface, I think about the white paper. Can we somehow preserve it? Line up Maxis, yo, electronic gold blows. Who can try to stop it tumbling, but on and on it goes. But wait, if I could scale to support the whole world's transactions, would that free some room up for more developmentation or simple uses? Instead we measure this growing blockchain. Keeps growing, keep going, 'cause all we see is rising of the fees that'll never stop. Whoa, users that'll leave till we just go pop. Whoa, BCH is bit the original purpose. See why it can sustain all the miners' income. Watch as Satoshi's design bends but never breaks. No mistakes, just fees that are low and sustainable. Whoa, blocks that can grow, 'cause we're ready to go. Whoa, come to Bitcoin Cash and never wonder when Blockstream's gonna pull you under. What's the point if not world currency? Low fees, big blocks, no mistakes, no pressure.
There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Listening to different podcasts, like in a whole different reality, which they think completely different things about Bitcoin.
They have got my money in their banking system. I should be able to access it, right?
Our player is live.
There's a good number of fucking, like, pretty smart B-cashers.
Holy cow, I'm a mess today. All right.
We are live.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. Okay, Jet, I'm now just seeing the whole slide and not our cameras anymore. Just a heads up. All right. This is episode number 148, BCH Bank Run and BLISS 2025 preview featuring Ryan Giffin. Today is Sunday, the 27th of April, 2025. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing, same as always. Quick check on the price. Today, one BCH is $352 US, 100 megasats up. One BTC sat buys 267.2 BCH sats. We're up slightly on the ratio there. One ETH buys 511 megasats. We're up on the ratio there. Selene, 30 days, 1,089 users after we released the web wallet. You can try that out at app.selene.cash in your browser. And the Tokenaut TVL, I think this is an all-time high that we've had on the show, is at 29,170 BCH. I forgot to update the screenshot, but BCH is rank 19, I believe. So we're doing good on the market. Our guest today, back for his 5th year running, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Well, this might even be the 6th one. How's that possible? No, we started in 2021. That's it. 5th time running annually back on the show. Ryan Giffin, the co-host of BLISS, BCH merchant and merchant adopter, and all-around ecosystem all-star. Welcome back to the show, my friend. How you doing? How you feeling at the moment? How's BCH going?
Everything is doing great. First shout out to you guys, man. 5 years of building this podcast as a center place for the ecosystem. I kind of can't believe it. It feels like yesterday. And I look back on how long I've been in crypto now. It still feels like when we talk to other people, like such a new thing all the time that you forget like how long you've actually been in it. And really excited for today's episode. Really excited for BLISS. I think the VM limits upgrade. Really proud of. I've been in BCH since day one, and I've never been more excited. And that's, I think we talked last year about like, is this the best time, or maybe over the Christmas episode ever for last year, like the best year for BCH? And probably yes. I felt like a lot of euphoria at the fork, and like probably naively optimistic about everything going correctly. But excited to talk about op next. I don't want to get too much into the details of what we're going to talk about today, but just one thing I want, in one of your interviews you talked about, and I think it's really one of BCH's biggest advantages right now, that we have the proper, protocol to build on, and the fact that we've been able to be small and continue from the developer nature of the project to ship really useful upgrades that are going to change the marketplace of crypto as we continue.
I hate to cut you off, Ryan, but did something like right before we went live, like change with your microphone? It's like weirdly quiet now.
Nothing. Any comments? Can you hear me? Jeremy, can you hear me?
There we go. Sounding good now. Keep talking.
Check 1, 2. Is that any better?
Here, let me try turning some of these off. Try this. You want to say something?
Go on.
Check one.
Oh, that's
Okay,
really
that's
quiet
nice.
now. Holy shit.
It was all fine on the. It was all fine on the pre-stream, and then it was like literally the second we went live.
Hold on, let me just turn all these like. Okay, try now.
You love what I was saying.
All right, hold on. Let me turn you up. Keep talking.
All right. I'm just checking out in the comments too. If anyone else wants to give feedback that's watching, I'm showing 50 live right now on X. So if you guys,
We got voluntarism in the comments saying, "Can you explain channel factories and how that reduces on-chain demand for onboarding people onto the Lightning Network?" No, we can't. This is the BCH podcast. Sorry. Do you know the problems, the pros and cons? The cons are it's on BTC, which has a 1 megabyte block size limit. So you're just fucked whenever you want to settle onto chain. That's the answer. I don't know all the specifics after that, but let me tell you, it's going to be a convoluted mess, and it's going to be expensive because there's only so much block space, and half of that is taken up by people creating inscriptions. So good luck with your channel factories.
Real quick, Ryan, can I try? Like, I've got 3 microphone options here. 3 microphone options here for you. They're all like named the same, but can we try swapping to see if one works better?
Yeah, whatever you need from me.
Okay.
That one sounds good. That one sounds really nice.
Hold on.
Check.
You should see a pop up on your end.
Good.
Are you allowed? Yes, I hit OK. All right, can you hear me better now?
Oh, it's loud, but it's cleaner. Okay. Keep going. Keep talking.
Easier to bring it down
Oh, now that's super quiet. Hold on. Can you turn it up on your end at all?
Let me go into settings.
Oh, now that's coming back.
See, that one sounds good.
Yeah.
It sounds good now. Just make it a little louder.
A little louder, a little louder.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
a
that's
lot
really
louder.
loud.
Well, thank you guys for bearing with us. I promise it'll be a good episode.
Yeah,
Okay.
There's a lot of exciting
maybe
stuff
we
to
should
talk
just run it back. Maybe we should just restart the whole thing.
We can-
I was half
Yeah.
distracted with the stream switching out.
Yeah, I don't even know. Okay, yeah. All right. A little bit.
All right, you happy, Jed? It's all good. It's all good. Sound levels all good.
Check.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds better to me.
All right.
All right, let's roll.
All right, let's just rock it from the start because now I'm so lost as to where we're at, and we already answered one question about Lightning Network, which
Right.
we don't need that in the full episode. Okay, all right. Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 148, BCH Bank Run and BLISS 2025 preview featuring Ryan Giffin. Today is Sunday, the 27th of April, 2025. Quick check on the price. BCH $352 USD for 100 sats, so we're up a little bit there. One BTC sat buys 267.2 BCH sats, we're up slightly, and one ETH buys 511 mega sats. We're also up on the ratio there. Selene 30-day users 1,089, which I believe is an all-time high that we've had on the slides, and the Tokenaut TVL hits 29,170 BCH, also an all-time high. So things are really improving on our adoption metrics. Our guest today, Ryan Giffin, is back for his 5th ever year of annual appearances. He's a co-host of BLISS, a BCH merchant, and also a BCH merchant adopter. Welcome back to the show, Ryan. How are you feeling about BCH? How are we doing these days?
BCH is doing amazing. I've been in BCH since day one. We want to talk a little bit about the price too, since we're on price. I believe we're back. I know your slide. I think it's not the correct one. We're back inside the top 20, closer to a $7 billion market cap, and ahead of Litecoin, which I know we kind of go back and forth and fight with them. But yeah, we had a great week. I saw we ripped up to 380 US. And heading into the upgrade, I think there'll be a lot of excitement, and really excited for where the price is at and the price is going, and just continue to ship quality upgrades. What we're going to talk about, your guys' visit to OpNext, which I know Jet was saying he's on a high coming back from, and just the benefits of being in BCH so long, and the benefits of us. I didn't realize how us becoming a smaller community was going to help us so much, and I don't know if it's true in the future as we become much larger, if it'll be harder to ship, such amazing upgrades as you guys were at OpNext, and it seemed so hard to even speak about, improving the protocol. But we excited that while we are smaller, to continue building and shipping useful tools that will be used for God knows how long, hundreds of years, thousands of years, who knows? But these are critical days.
Thousands of years. That's maybe a little optimistic, but I like the attitude. Now, when you were on last year, I was listening to some of that earlier today, and we started out by talking about you trying to onboard people like via your business and having basically a lack of, like, there was BitPay and we sort of have prompt.cash and stuff like that, but we don't really have just a slick company at scale that we can just refer people to who maybe want to put BCH payments into their business, but one, they don't want to fuck around, setting it all up themselves. Like, it needs to be really packaged up and easy because they don't have time for that. They're busy running, their business. And two, they need a support line that they can just get answers really quick, and it needs to be operating at scale, right? For businesses with hundreds or thousands of employees. So we're not talking about like small stuff. You said it would be really good if we had a service like that. And I feel like 1 year later, we still kind of don't. Do you have any reflections on that part of it? Have you found another way to work around that problem, or is it just still an opportunity we haven't fixed yet?
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's a really good question. So I just came back from Washington, D.C., and I was at my company as a part of a buying group. So essentially what that is, there's 100 businesses that we're all shareholders of this buying group, and we meet and we combine our buying power to best leverage our prices where we can buy our products at. So I was able to hold a speech telling more people about us accepting cryptocurrency, highlighting Bitcoin Cash, and the amount of volume we do with it, the price appreciation, having gone through a bear market, what that's done to our company's balance sheet by just accepting it and holding it. Now, the way I view it, why I don't need any alternative service to, like BitPay to bring in crypto and settle in whatever I want, kind of, is because in terms of our volume, the amount of transactions are a smaller percentage. So I don't mind using that as kind of an alternative operating account or even savings account. I say operating account because we do use it, and we do have some of our vendors that do accept BCH as payment. And they're currently also seeing it similar, that they're just doing a smaller percentage of it in terms of their gross volume. But some of these companies are tens of millions, if not 100 millions of dollars in annual revenue. So even if they do tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in BCH transactions, it's not enough to create an uncomfortable cash flow situation with the price volatility. So while it is something that we really need to figure out, and BitPay, struggles to be an answer for the masses at the moment, because the legal restrictions and regulations within the United States to onboard is cost intensive for them, and versus the amount of, and then also saying, hey, how much volume of transactions are you actually going to produce versus all the time that goes into setting you up as a business. The one thing that we are doing internally to try to create some more flexibility in exchanging is Kraken has some decent business services in the United States. So we are in the process of getting set up with them. And Coinbase, I found them difficult to work with, at least other businesses in the United States, how you're looking at, if you're a crypto friendly business. And the general sentiment from business owners is they're okay with accepting it. They just want flexibility and solutions to price volatility, essentially. And maybe a little bit of tax guidance as well is also a popular comment. But I would say, in summary, my general conversations as someone that does it himself is that it's a low percentage of transactions, and keeping some of the stuff around is useful, and not worrying too much of the volatility of it has been the general consensus. And of course, I'm always okay with adding to my stack. So I thought I was unique in that, but most business owners just sort of okay with holding some crypto and accepting it on chain, and using simple services like the Bitcoin Cash Register, or just or the owner or someone they trust is dealing with the private wallet. So that's to answer your question. Not at the moment, but it's also not an urgent need, at least from where I'm at.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because, maybe sort of the need for that has popped, but I feel like there's still going to be a huge opportunity for that, because what they don't want, where you said they're okay, it's a small percentage of transactions, so they can kind of just get on board, treat it as a bit of an experiment. But what they don't want is for it to not work, right? If there's any small issues or grief coming out of a small percentage of their transactions, they will just kill that instantly and be like, we don't have time for this, right? Yeah. Which is why the reliability of that is going to be so important. And then as the transaction volume slowly grows, it's going to be more and more important to have somebody that they can talk to find out all the details about tax and about this and about that, right? And that's going to emerge organically, presumably, as the market demands it. And I feel like we're getting to that point, but I just don't know how or where or when the BCH community specifically, because it would be awesome if we had a company that was like BitPay or like Coinbase or whatever, but it was basically BCH only, and they just linked up with everyone in the BCH scene. They knew the main BCH wallets, the main BCH point of sale stuff, Bitcoin Cash Register, Prompt, and the Paytaka stuff. They were like experts in all those and had communication lines to all those teams. They provided a US-based number or whatever that people could just call, and okay, any time of day or night, I need to talk to someone about Bitcoin Cash. They're going to have the answer. And just like, if we had something like that, I feel like it would be an amazingly successful thing. I just personally don't have time to run it, but somebody's got to do that.
there does need to be a need for that. Also, story in my mind, and it's going to take a lot of effort to do it, but just basic integration for some large point of sale services to integrate that in, I think seems logical. So, like for example, the United States, like Toast is a big thing that restaurants use, and I own a restaurant too. So, like if I could people could just pay me through my one point of sale rather than creating another standard operating procedure when someone does want to pay in crypto. Me as a business owner, I would find that like super useful. So I think integration with current popular systems is an effort that someone should take on, and I'd love to take on as my bandwidth in my life could increase. And then, but then, yeah, and then offer, like something like BitPay is just like a different standard operating procedure. So you have someone like the guy that owns the Houston Rockets. He also owns a lot of steakhouses and things like that. And I've gone there and eaten and paid in BCH, but it's just a separate. They have it in their company booklet on if someone wants to pay with crypto, you accept it and use BitPay. So it's so there's two ways of that. Like, yes, we need that to offer the ability. But if I'm, what's interesting is someone like Jack Dorsey, who's in this space, the point of sale space, hasn't mastered this yet. So I wonder the challenges faced with trying with integration, because you think that he would do that. Maybe he just is pushing a non-useful coin and finds that cumbersome. Maybe that's stopping him. So maybe that's an opportunity for BCH to slide in. I don't know exactly the answer, but I can just give you a business owner's perspective.
But that's where I feel like, for me, the need is obvious, but the tricky part is that I feel like it has to be a BCH only type of effort, right? Like every time the BCH community has been relying on, like somebody will create the sort of crypto friendly onboarding, like there already are some of those services, but it's not up to the quality that the BCH community needs to break through. So that's the real challenge, is where do we find the resources internally and amongst ourselves to make something like that? And if we, sort of outsource it in quotation marks, like somebody else builds it, it's a guarantee that within 12 months or 3 years or on some time frame, they're going to delist BCH or refuse to add the latest upgrade or not cooperate with the wallet devs or like blah, blah, blah. Like we've seen it so many times, right? That's where I feel like it's not even just that we need a solution for this, because solutions will be created in the whole crypto industry, but we need a BCH specific and optimized one to really stand out.
I think what BLISS is, right? Like BLISS is the opportunity to bring together developers and investors. Maybe that's a great topic. I'm hosting a panel, so maybe some of that conversation could have. I find MUSD more interesting as we continue to grow the cash token side, and at least from the volatility perspective and yield products and potential collateralizing of things, and then and also privacy, which down the road, can fix some of the pain points that business owners can feel from just, let's say, volatility.
Okay.
Did not
Please
see that.
turn that up. Please. All right. Not that. Whatever you were doing there. All right. Go on.
I don't know what happened, but the tax solution may go away with if in the United States, at least, if the president makes good on his promise of saying he would get rid of capital gains taxes on the movement of it, because that's something that's annoying to deal with if you're transacting every day, trying to figure out your cost basis, what you paid your bill at, and figuring out. I mean, again, for volume, it's not that big of an issue because a controller can do that to the end of the month and make it part of his task. Smaller businesses may not have a controller and just busy, and that can be annoying. But that's kind of summary. I think it's a great topic and a great opportunity. As we, like you said, it cannot rely on multi-coin to always keep us inclusive. Having BCH specific products are critical to make sure that that we're not relying on the way someone else feels.
Yeah, I mean, like the Paytaka guys seem to be doing a really good job of nurturing a little local ecosystem in the Philippines. And to a certain extent, also the BCH Argentina guys seem to be doing a good job. Each of those teams is sort of adapting and building things according to their their local environment. So it's just kind of like these things can work. It's just about you need to have a very dedicated and well-funded group of people in one place that just sticks at it for quite a long time and just goes BCH only. And I feel like we're maybe missing that hub of adopters in America that would end up providing those kinds of services and solutions. So
PayTalk is a great example. I was talking to someone on either X or Instagram, and he was encouraging me to use the POS system and selling it, but the feature to sell in the United States doesn't work. So again, I think as the regulatory climate towards crypto has gone down recently, that I think that these kind of products will appear, and understand the opportunity if that's what's happening, and like the regulatory environment won't be as cumbersome. I think not only BCH, but everyone else will be racing to offer those services. I assume that it's the regulatory environment that makes it expensive, difficult. The what's the word? The litigation that can occur from things. When you're dealing with money, in terms of SEC type things. That kind of fear lives in the United States pretty strongly.
Yeah. And you mentioned MUSD stuff. So I have a slide here that I just took a screenshot earlier today. I was actually repaying my own Moria loan, and I was just looking at it, and I had my Cash and Eyes wallet with the Wallet Connect session open, and it just has the Moria Money, Fund Me, BCH Pump, Cauldron, and Badges, right? It's that next one there, Jet, after, yeah. And I was just looking at that, and it like kind of hit me like, wow, we're really doing it. We have a DeFi ecosystem that is starting to flourish, because I didn't engineer this. This was just, I was just going about my day. I needed to make a couple of transactions. I did. And then I was thinking, wow, the Cash and Eyes wallet didn't even exist, 2 years ago. All these different apps have all come up as a result of the Cash Tokens upgrade and the tooling that has been built around it. The Wallet Connect, so that they all connect to your wallet. That integration is still not like 100% slick, but it's usable and it's getting there. And I feel like we're just constantly heading towards that moment that, again, if we can just wrap this all up together a little bit nicer and then do some more educational work, people are really suddenly going to be like, holy crap, this is insanely useful, because the base money and payments part of it is good, but it's hard to get over the network effect hurdle. So you need to have another thing to sell people on. And that's where, if then they can see, wow, look at all these extra apps and different things I can do, that can get them to try it out. And then you have converts, So how do you feel about that? How are we doing with the sort of DeFi ecosystem part of it? That, like, if we went back 5 years as well, too, thinking about that first show we did together 5 years ago in 2021, April 2021, there was none of this was on the radar or even being discussed or anything. And like, sometimes you just got to take a moment to reflect on where we're at now,
Yeah, it's just an interesting markets, competing and creating things. Back then, I remember one year we were talking, obviously the Smart BCH days and those things, which, showed that we, wanted DeFi within the ecosystem. But, and I think we'll probably talk about ETH later. And I know in our, kind of our we're working on like those videos that we've been making to promote BLISS, but, the difference between EVM and UTXO, and the possibility of it. And I know you had Badgers on recently, and just the concept of building smart contracts on UTXO versus EVM or proof of time or whatever else the market's trying to compete on. And the one thing I'll say is that that I think that you have to give it to proof of work and UTXO as a scripting language as proof that it's been working for such a long time. And going back to Badger saying, like, so far everything we've tried has worked on it. And I think kind of like the pushback on what we're trying to do, I've heard people say things like they're kind of limited, they're smart dumb contracts. Like I've heard some things like that. Obviously VM limits and improving the scripting. And if we're right on this, and as we talk about ETH, getting slaughtered, and this ecosystem is going to exist to create other competing products for financial services that we get from traditional finance today, you need this. You need this, and the most successful, or the most successful chains will have this tooling. And yeah, 2 years ago, I'm ready. I'm most excited for BLISS to kind of jump into the ecosystem more. It's been 2 years of development, and we're seeing real products and real value being created. And again, going back to Badgers, like we don't even, everything we're trying to do is like possible, and that's been and I think VM limits will compound on that, and that's why I'm super excited. And again, as I said at the top, we need to ship all these. Not like we don't have time to wait to do this as our community grows, because these products are useful. There's gonna be a lot more people, and as we talk about Op Next, like it's a lot harder to do it the bigger we get, and so time is important, and right now is great time. These are the good days.
Getting those protocol upgrades in early. I mean, it was even just as I was listening to that episode that we did last year, 1 year ago. That was before last year's BLISS, right? We're coming up to this year's BLISS. So that was before last year's BLISS, and it kind of felt like, wow, 12 months ago we hadn't even run like BLISS, It really put things in perspective. Like at that time, BLISS was an innovation in and of itself, and we'll talk about running it back this year. But I was just really getting a sense from looking at my own wallet. I was like, it's starting to become real. All the stuff that we've talked about on this show over the years, like, oh, BCH will get there, guys, just keep grinding, just keep putting in the effort. Like who has stuff like this? Maybe the Ethereum ecosystem, maybe Solana a little bit, but none of the other UTXO chains have anything even close to this that I'm aware of. BTC certainly doesn't, LTC doesn't, XMR basically couldn't. It wouldn't work with their stuff. Dash, no, BSV or XCC basically like dead. Like between all these different options, I feel like, it's like a seedling, when you have a little seedling and it's starting to grow in a little pot or something like that. I feel like we're holding it. We're the ones who've got it, It's been so much work once you think about how much technology, the protocol upgrades, the libraries, the wallets, the actual apps themselves, like even the oracles and the supporting pieces of infrastructure you need to get this, and we've got it. So I'm just beyond excited seeing it.
And shout out to the BCH community. A lot of people that are watching are going to watch this. A lot of people, it reminds me of an old saying, let's say doing startup companies and stuff. A lot of people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. And this is just, the patience element of it. And is that the market really doesn't have, we're still not at adoption. And what was interesting, I was at this conference that I hosted, using cryptocurrency, Bitcoin Cash in your business, and the CEO of our buying group said, he feels like we're ahead on crypto, but he says he thinks we are catching up to AI, and I view that almost like a little bit sadly, because crypto's been around for I feel like crypto's been a bigger conversation longer than AI is. Maybe AI, I just wasn't in those communities as they were trying to build what they're building now. But now, people use AI daily in their life. So maybe I'm off in that, but I that day is going to come, and it's hard because that day's not here. Every day you have to compete to create the products is going to be the chain that is going to be the chains that are going to be the most useful. So I'm not an expert in AI, or I wasn't in those development communities. Maybe they've been working on it for longer. Maybe I could be wrong, but I feel like I wish crypto was there, and I feel like it's been around for a long time, and we've been working on it for a long time. But and I don't necessarily view that we're early. I feel like we need to be involved in crypto. I think all business owners should. If I was building a business in the mid 90s, hopefully I was doing something around or integrating my business with the internet. And I feel like business owners today should think of crypto similarly. Are you going to wait for the internet to happen and then jump on it? That may work for people, but you're missing a huge opportunity to the things that you can get access to by being close to these ecosystems.
Yeah. Well, when you say with the AI stuff, I mean, that there's a lot of long tail of research has been done, you know, in the years leading up, in the same way that cryptocurrency was going on before 2009, people trying to figure out things. You know, this stuff always has very deep roots, but the difference is that AI just was not, well, maybe partly as a result of cryptocurrency, but it was just did not have that system pushback, probably because Bitcoin had already broken down the door a little bit. And so once ChatGPT came out and it was like sort of useful and it started going viral, it didn't stop. That's why the whole block size war thing was such a big deal, and people to this day still don't really get it. That if the way that everybody just uses AI and it just suddenly became part of life over maybe a two-year time span, it just became everyday commonplace, and all laws and regulations and whatever, and politicians just need to adapt to it and go forward with it. Like, that was the opportunity that Bitcoin had 2015 to 2017, and it all got like squandered. But we could have been in a world where half the world was using, you know, Bitcoin by 2019 or by 2021 if things had worked out differently. Of course they didn't, and that's all history, and that just goes to show that maybe Bitcoin was fighting in a different time period where there was more resources available from the invested interest to try and suppress it, right?
Right.
But we will in the future be through that. In the future, we will be in that world, though, like you say. So it's really just going to be a question of grinding it out, maybe the next 3, 5, 10 years, however long it takes, until suddenly there'll be a tipping point. Obviously, we think it's going to be in BCH, but it's just becoming normalized as well, too. Just every single day, more and more and more people are getting used to the idea of cryptocurrency and seeing payments, and that default resistance is just falling away. Now it just needs to be good, you know, it just needs to be useful.
Yeah, I you know, it's the pushback I get, you know, is maybe I'm just really good at onboarding, but maybe the public is just ready there.
You've had a lot of practice.
I had 50 and 60-year-old women so excited to get their wallet set up and learn and play with it and what it is.
That's just because they like you.
So I was just, you know, I almost like expected more pushback, you know, and years ago, it's either one, I'm getting better, or the public is ready, you know.
Probably a bit of both, I think. Anyway, what do you think then with the DeFi stuff? Like, things are going in the right direction, but with the community limited resources, where do you see the biggest gaps that we need to fill in, specifically with this kind of DeFi related stuff? You know, if you were a dictator of BCH, where would you be saying, guys, let's put a few extra coins into developing something?
I've been doing a lot of thinking on that, and you know, I kind of threw out on X, like, what are your favorite cash tokens? And I've been trying to think of myself again. You know, there's from an individual basis, or like I think about a lot of things in regards to my business. And you know, obviously, like the BLISS ticket is something that I've been reflecting more on as I've been thinking about how can cash tokens be useful in my life. You know, I think the future reward systems that BLISS ticket holders can receive is a good way to kind of, you know, really grab an ecosystem. So I think, you know, I think that's something that I should think more about from my business perspective is, you know, I have this crazy idea, and tell me what you think about it. I want to, you know, private label equipment and call it like Bitcoin Cash refrigeration, and you know, have the logo be the blue bee, and inside like create a QR code where if you scan that, connects to a wallet and accesses some kind of, like, my company's called Commercial Kitchen Stop NFT, that now I can give these people rewards or airdrop them things or do things like that to kind of grab your ecosystem through, you know, through non-fungible tokens. That's not what I think maybe the community is missing. I think maybe the business owners can think about how to use these products and tools. Just curious what you think about that idea. Am I off the wall, or is that
no? I mean, this is exactly what we should be doing. Is the product ideas which are coming from the businesses who are essentially the product and sales arm of the BCH community should be then feeding into what the devs are building, right? There's no point like building in the other direction. It needs to be, okay, we need this and we'll build this. So in the way that the BLISS Velmas that we have are driving us to integrate, for instance, Wallet Connect into, and cash tokens as well, obviously into Selene and into all the other wallets and so forth. And I feel like there will be just a few more of those NFT projects. And then if you want to do something like that, at a certain point, it's going to be simple because nothing new will need to be built. Once you have the basics of issuing a cash token, sending it around the network to different people, maybe attaching some extra utility, ability to do airdrops to those same things, or to like track those people or have them issued back and forth for refunds. These are just like the basic tools. And we already have some of that in the sense, like we have Token Studio to create them, but it's still kind of like pretty difficult, it's still a pain. There's different you got to set up that little auth guard key and whatever. So with a bit more iteration, that will get to the point where that's just easy. It's a form. You just type in, I want exactly this. You tick a couple boxes, you hit submit, and then bang, it just sends back to your wallet. Here's your initial tokens, and however you want to do, you can do with it, right? If you know what I'm saying. So like it will go from custom built websites to here's a WordPress thing, drag and drop a few things, and okay, it's not the world's most flexible or greatest whatever website, but it does mostly what you want for 70% of people. And I feel like that's the same transition that we got to go through with the cash tokens and the NFT and the fungible token tooling that we have. But we're not going to know what are going to be those basic building blocks that people are going to need unless people like you are talking about, well, this is what I want. And so even what you just described, being able to issue cash tokens to a physical object and then track them, send them airdrops. What else?
Yeah, so I'm going to do that over the next 6 months. And and again, community feedback on it's helpful. And I was thinking about like offering the equipment in funding, because the requirement for me to private label and brand Bitcoin Cash equipment, I need to buy a container load of it. And I was thinking about, and try to get more people from the outside. Hey, if you need equipment, maybe do like a fundme.cash, and you can get your equipment at cost if you're helping with the initial first order, which will be very large. And then, so just using the ecosystem tools. So again, I throw that idea around. I wanted to talk about it more at BLISS and see who could help me set up this idea and, get BCH branding into all the businesses around here and get business owners with wallets using cash tokens. So that's an idea I'll bring to BLISS and talk to some different developers there. In terms of tokenizing, I think, as I was reflecting more on DeFi ecosystems, yeah, I think that the market, you said it correctly, the market needs to tell them what would be more useful. And the best thing I could say is that I don't think any coins are doing extremely great. I think from the perspective that I think the best thing that we've got out of DeFi so far is just memes, and I think there's a lot more there. So I think anything else that you could take as as a traditional funding or a traditional finance would be anything that the bank is offering that we could do through tokenizing. So I've heard like the concept of taking collateral against your stack at 0%. In the way I think about that is if I have equity in something, and I have to go to a bank to create value there, and I have to pay the bank interest to give me access to my equity, through DeFi, if we can create that tooling where we can compete with banking services that charge you a percentage there, whether it's 0% or a very low fee, using collateral and providing the liquidity for that, I think that's going to be huge if that can be done through DeFi. And I know those conversations have happened, and I want to pick them up more at BLISS too. That's why I think it's so important to be at BLISS, because there's nothing like real time speaking to real people, telling them your needs. And if you're listening to this, and if you feel like you can provide feedback to that, that's the way things I think are valuable. And the loan market's a massive market for business owners to continue growing. And do you know anything else about that? I've seen some of those conversations, some Reddit forums.
Well, there's been a bit of the Moria
Yeah.
is working. We have the V0, and I think that's absolutely huge because Marcelo was talking in the Selene Telegram about this as well too, right? Where he's onboarding people in Argentina and things are going really well. Sort of they've been using Selene. We've ironed out a lot of the initial, the bugs and stuff like that over time. So things are going well there. And now what's catching people's attention is they still need some kind of USD hedge or coin or something, because especially in Argentina, they're just in that context where their local currency is going to shit. People already have a whole like black market of USD. And so people are already looking for that. They're already looking for whether it's Tether or Binance or whatever, some different ways around the system. And so they're very open-minded to the concepts of BCH and cryptocurrency and everything, but they need that USD element to it. And it also ties in well with the loans. And that's why we have Moria are just killing it in terms of you can already do that. You can already go on chain. You can already put your BCH stack up as collateral. You mint a bunch of MUSD. The peg has been pretty good. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been pretty good even through some pretty substantial volatility. The liquidity has been building up on Cauldron, right? There's a lot of these pieces are starting to come together, but I think we've still got a ways to go in terms of they're dropping their V1 at the network upgrade, so probably either at BLISS or maybe, the day or two after. Hopefully they're going to sunset their initial experiment. They'll have the V1 with the learnings that they've done from that. And just as I was playing around with it today, I was thinking this is really good, and it is really good, but it's still like just needs a little more UI refinement, I feel like, because I have to click around these different screens. I have to know all the details of all this different stuff. It's not like you give someone Selene and then we just have a button that's like mint me USD or lock to USD or anything. We don't have that yet. We will. And it's good because last year, on the episode last year, we were talking about cash tokens. Selene now has cash tokens. So I feel like 1 year later, we've delivered that. And then the 1 year from now is going to be a lot better integrating some of those elements, because it does need to get down to just 1 or 2 clicks presented in your wallet with educational resources there. So, because right now you're trying to aggregate too much stuff, it's hard enough to onboard somebody, and then they say, what about this? And then you say, well, you've got to go off to this other project. They say, what is that? There's not really that much explanation of what that is or how it's related or how to use it all together, how to wallet connect from this to that and mint this. And like, it's all just very, very confusing. So if we can simplify both the UI and the pitch, the explanation and the education around it, I think like that's basically what you're asking for, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. So Mariah is likely to be the liquidity pool of that, and how those contracts are built. And I just pulled up on my screen here, as I know it is a massive thing. And Tether, we always got to be careful with, but Tether is $150 billion market cap, and USDC is $62 billion. So it obviously is a huge.
BCH is like 7.
Right.
Think about that. BCH is 7. Even USDC 62 billion. Yeah.
So these are massive market opportunities we're stepping into, and I think the UI is everything, right? Like we're in a very building technical space. We have a lot of smart technical people, but we got to have products that are competitive with traditional finance. And we can talk about the slowing down, but back like Zelling and Venmoing are like, so like people compare crypto transactions to now, like we were so ahead of that, but like now we got these products we got to catch up to in terms of, but it'll probably be even easier because like God, going through underwriting for loans and things like that and doing things like that is such a pain too. If you could pull out a line of credit against your equity for $20,000 with 2 buttons, like, oh my God, that's killer. That is it rather than, I'm acquiring a business right now where, using a line of credit to have extra liquidity. It's a month, that's a huge market opportunity. If there could be products like that could be delivered within less than a month, or whatever it is.
Should be 5 minutes or less. You got the BCH, 2 taps, bam, there you go. You got your MUSD.
Yeah, and it should simplify things through smart contracting and public ledgers and things like that. Should make all that underwriting bullcrap that we deal with today in finance. And that's why, and again, that's why crypto is the future. Like these things are coming, and it's going to trump what we use today. So, and it's important we have it. And again, it's important to see it's growing. And only 2 years in. I think BLISS, again, I know I'm shouting, it's a big thing that we've worked very hard on, but it's such an important event to make sure that we push innovation further, you know?
Yeah, okay, we'll get on to BLISS in a second, but firstly, I wanted to talk to you about our BCH bank run initiative that we've started in the community, you know, with our twice a month drives to everybody to withdraw into self-custody. So we've now done 4 of them because we did 2 in March and 2 in April. It's been really popular, you know. I mean, just I am always looking for, I can introduce an idea or I can create a proof of concept or something like that, but you kind of need to see some organic traction to know you're on the right track. Like if people like the crap version, they're going to really like the good version, you know? Whereas if people don't like the crap version, maybe a good version is not going to help, you know? There's enough, especially in BCH, there's enough people that are forward thinking and kind of pro innovation that if you can pitch them something and they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know, you kind of are already onto a loser maybe. But we've done it now 4 times. The third time, Poloniex closed off BCH for quote unquote maintenance, which was maybe just coincidental. You know, we can never know. We're not necessarily going to know if we're causing the exchange's problems, but we can just watch. And then the 4th time, so this most recent one at the in the 15th of April, Kraken was actually unable to fill Molecular's withdrawal. He had bought some BCH and he wanted to withdraw it as part of the bank run, and they said we had a technical issue with the blockchain unable to process, which is complete nonsense. BCH was completely fine, and they were not able to honor his withdrawal. So that also, it could just be a coincidence, but that really struck me. You know, it was like literally right on the same day he was trying to withdraw his bank run coins, and he couldn't get them. So this pool of BCH that is available for on-chain funds, that's all, of course, going to be short sold. The exchanges are going to, you know, sell that off and speculate on the price going down, or maybe they're fractional reserved on their other coins, so they sell off some of the BCH to, you know, fill a gap somewhere else. And it's just up to us that if we can do a big enough bank run, especially if we're constantly making it consistent, then the exchanges are going to have to sell off their other coins to get the on-chain BCH to fill the demand. Like, how have you been seeing the BCH bank runs playing out?
Yeah.
Are we going to blow up an exchange eventually?
That's it. You know, Jeremy, you've had a lot of good ideas over the years. This is probably one of my favorites. And I think is, you know, my ultimate goal would be see the exchanges, you know, show, well, some show, you know, proof of reserves for other coins, and make sure BCH is in that class, that they're proving the reserves of it, or else, you know, we shouldn't support those exchanges. You shouldn't buy your crypto. You got to get your crypto somewhere, right? Best way is to accept it. But if you can't just accept it and you want more of it, you got to go to an exchange. So I think 100%. I don't, you know, they're obviously, like what you said, they're taking your money. They're not holding the coin that you think you're holding, and it's pushing the price of what you think may have more value for you down. It's working against you. So this is why I thought, you know, it was such a great idea. It's like, let's continue just to promote this self-custody to people, because if you're just a fringe, you know, BCH holder, you know, you bought it because you heard something you liked about it or thought or wanted to speculate on it, but just getting them into the culture of self-custody, one of the most important things about crypto. So bringing your BCH home. I love the meme. I love the name of it. Is really important to do. And I don't know any other way to do. I think this is the best way to do it, to promote that culture and hold the exchanges, you know, accountable to keep BCH around, so they don't hurt the price.
And do you think we're going to see more of this? It would be logical, right? Because I'm excited also. Not only did we get organic traction on the community side, but we've also got a response on the exchange side, right? It's not, yeah. I was not thinking, okay, the first time we do this, we're going to cause problems. But if we do it regularly, which is enforcing that culture of self-custody, then it kind of adds up. It escalates over time. You know, maybe initially there's some sort of leeway. in the pool of BCH that's available. But a couple of times we do the bank run, that kind of shrinks. And then it starts to get like down to the wire until there's a critical tipping point, right? So I'm super enthused about the fact that we've only done it 4 times. This has only been 2 months. And maybe it doesn't have to be much. Maybe we've already seen a little crack there, you know, and then it's just like now you just put a lever in and start start adding some pressure, you know. So
I think you're 100% right that it's affecting the exchanges. I believe, or I don't know. You haven't said like for sure, but I think rather than blowing up an exchange is likely to hurt another coin. You know, if they're saying, okay, this coin we have to keep more of around. We still want to run our game that we're doing, whatever fractional game we're playing. BCH is not the coin to do that with. You know, so I think it may be, and they'll pick on another one. And if other communities cannot smart up enough to realize what is happening to them, they'll pay the price, and it just won't be BCH. Can we blowing up an exchange? I think, even though we've seen a lot blow up over the years, I don't know if this will be the event, but I definitely seeing it make, you know, other coins that they maybe treat more in favor, and maybe not so if we can be enough, because there's a reason that they whatever they're holding it, and if we give them more reason to hold it because it requires more liquidity to hold that. The other side of it you talked about on Joel's when you brought this up during Joel's podcast was the potential, like, oh, it's so annoying, we don't want to deal with it. I don't think it's unlikely because they're still getting their exchange fees. It's still, they want people to buy and move the coin on their exchange, so I don't see that as probable. I just think they will treat the coin better.
Yeah, I don't think that exchanges are that likely to delist it. It's one of those nuanced things because the goal of this is not to get the exchanges to delist BCH. I don't want BCH delisted. We want it listed as many places as possible, obviously. But if this pressures the exchanges enough that at least 1 or 2 of them does delist it, especially if they admit it, if they put out a press release and saying the BCH community has been withdrawing into self-custody and we can't support that, so we've delisted BCH, that would be such a huge PR win for us. Yeah. Even if they tried to cover it up, even if they said, oh, we've just had some technical problems that we would know if they made up an excuse, then that's still a win for us. Like, we're not trying to get delisted, but if we get delisted because this is working, that's still a win, you know, because then it just means that exchange is bowing out of the game of trying to fraud BCH. Like, well, the pressure is going to fall on whichever is the most sketchy of the exchanges. That's the beautiful part about this, because when you're withdrawing on chain, you're just sucking away that pool of BCH that is floating around in the exchange system. And the well-capitalized exchanges, or the ones that are not doing anything untoward, won't notice any difference, or they won't have any problems. Or like you said, they can just start scamming another community and instead, you know, honor the BCH with withdrawals, which is also a win for us.
Yeah.
But if it'll be the one at the end of the tail, that is the one that has the problems. And if they announce that they're delisting BCH, if we can find some link to the bank runs, then that's so I'm not trying to get us delisted, but if we get delisted because the bank run is working, I'm more than okay with that, basically. But the ideal case is that we don't get delisted at all, and instead just the price goes up, which might also happen as a result of that, right? Because if it's just not as much BCH, people are just going to be scrambling to get it.
Yeah, I think it's not probable, and I think it's a great exercise on many fronts, encouraging self-custody, and requiring, and what you're seeing, and I feel like I've seen a couple times throughout the past, you know, is like we've talked about on the show, Binance has had to mine it when they didn't have enough, and it is only good. And like I said, even if some low liquidity exchange, did not want to make good on deposits, well, maybe that's somewhere you don't want to, like if it's a bank, I don't want to bank there, like it's only positive.
Oh, yeah, so like you say, we've got community comment of the week, just to wrap this up, is from John Galt. So Kraken's excuse, which they gave, was, quote, technical issue, we are still monitoring it. I'm afraid that's all there is to it. Let us know if it fails or do something weird. It should not, however, end quote. So that was what Kraken said was the reason that they couldn't honor the withdrawal. And then John Galt said, quote, "Well, yes, it is a very technical issue. Unfortunately, the output value exceeded the available input values, and we couldn't encode a negative fee to compensate. Clearly a technical blockchain issue." End quote. So well done, mate. That's it. There's no, at the end of the day, it's just demanding proof. It's just don't trust, verify, right? If they don't have the money, they can't honor. There's only three options. If they don't have the BCH, they either the price has to go up as they buy it from somewhere else. They have to close their BCH with withdrawals, or the exchange has to go bankrupt. That's the only three options. So the more we can pile on the pressure, the better.
Did they say anywhere it was a blockchain? I didn't see that they. Where did
well,
they?
that's what it, it was before this. It wasn't in this screenshot, but they said they previously said to Molecular there was a transaction issue with the blockchain or something like that. Like on his screen, that was the error he got when he tried to withdraw. It said blockchain can't process or something like that, which is probably just a generic error they have if the withdrawal fails. But it's like, why would it fail? Because they don't have the coins. Because otherwise it should be working, But they don't want to admit that. They're not going to put in their error message, okay, if we don't have the funds, display error, shit, we're out of funds. Like, they're not going to do that.
Because they're not. Because the customer's perspective, I'm in the app, I see the BCH in there,
exactly.
Right? I can't say we lied,
Exactly. Anyway, so that's all to say. Good job, everyone, and keep up the bank running 1st and 15th. Of course, it is timed, so we'll do one on the 1st in a couple of days, and then also on the 15th live at BLISS. That's going to be kind of fun. We can announce it in the morning on the live stream. So I'm kind of loving that. All right, let's talk about BLISS. So we've got the 2025 edition of BLISS. I've been shilling it on the show relentlessly. Coming up 13th to 15th of May. The ticket sale is still open. It's going to close at the end of April. So if you want to get a ticket, you just have the last couple of days left to do it. I mean, there's 30 days, has September, April, June, and November. So 3 days left to get your Velma. You can come hang out with us. Go to tapswap.cash and buy it. And if you needed another reason, Ljubljana has just been named the world's most crypto-friendly city by some kind of irrelevant, tiny little online publication, which actually had nothing to do with BLISS. But I don't know how they came to that conclusion. But you can read the article and try and get to the bottom of it. Anyway, one of our sponsor deliverables is to shout out the sponsors, so I got to quickly do that. Big shout out to the BCH podcast, Mike Komaranski, Commercial Kitchen Stop, Ravish Off Ocean, BCH Bull, Mini Satoshi, Molecular, Turek, BLISS 2024, and Steve Thurmond for helping to support the event. Obviously, we're running it back for our second year in a row. How's it been in comparison to doing V1? Do you have any reflections behind the scenes, organizing it, getting ready for everything?
Behind the scenes, we had some fun exercises, me, you, and Jonathan, about just fine tuning the mission and making it more clear in that video that we did, Jeremy. And it's felt a lot smoother this time. We had more time to do it, so we meet every week, Jeremy, me, and Jonathan, and go over progress on whatever we're working on, or ticket sales. And I just feel like it's a lot less pressure this year. We delivered a good product. We're confident in our product. We think this year is going to be even better. Shout out today, we got news that now we've matched our last year's sales, so looking forward to exceeding last year's ticket sales. I was happy to hear too, while you're at OpNext, that their event is only slightly bigger, which and he gave a compliment to the BCH community, saying really appreciating the technical work done in the community, which is a lot of his eyes, and that which his event is about, delivering that for BTC. So it's good to see that our technical nature and work for the event that we do is in line with a much larger coin. And and also just want to give a shout out to Slovenia, as it's a beautiful place. I really happy to be a part of this, as now it gives me a good opportunity to go to Europe and experience the amazing food and culture over there. So if you're on the fence about doing it, if you want to learn, if you're invested in BCH, you should be there. You should know what's going on and add to the conversation to help improve your coin's value, because that's what this event is about. Is really, as we've talked about before, these products are what derives its future value and making it more usable. So just really excited to be a part of it. It's a wonderful event. It's a beautiful place to be, a beautiful time of the year to be there. And this year we have a great speaking list. Peter Risen, who's a Bitcoin OG developer, will be speaking. Sally Mayweather, who's very popular on X, has a big following, is going to be a part of my panel. Obviously, a lot of the all-stars you already know from the ecosystem are going to be there. And we continue to grow and really just can't wait. I leave a little bit early. I'm leaving on May 7th to go to Europe and get us all set up over there.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, that was really interesting as well for me being at ObNext. We'll talk about that in a minute, but going to another conference of kind of, similar size, similar vibe, to have a look at how they'd organize things. And one thing that really stood out to me, I think, was they have the technical talks, just like we do. They have the panels, like we do. They have people chatting in the corridors. They have beers afterwards. That was all kind of the same. But what they didn't have, or roughly equivalent, what they didn't have was the kind of showing off the projects, like on the open house section. And they didn't have people checking in with their NFTs. I feel like a little bit more of that hands-on element is where BCH is really starting to thrive and prove the merits of what we're doing, because we're actually dog fooding, we're using our own products live to run the event. So I think that was really struck me as a big differentiating factor. And I expect that, we may or may not see some of those guys come to BLISS this year, but if not, I'm expecting by next year, certainly the BCH hype and momentum will be enough that I think we'll get a couple of BTC guys to come in attendance. And I think if I had to predict, that is what they would first be struck by. Like, wait a second, these guys are actually doing it. They're not just talking. This is not all just hype, that you can pay with it for BTC. Like, even like ObNext, like I didn't pay for my ticket in BTC. I actually got some BTC so that I could pay my ticket, but then that wasn't even an option on the website. It was like, pay with credit card or contact us to pay in BTC. I didn't want to have to go out of my way to contact them. Like, they just didn't have it by default, right? So I think you have the value is always similar in terms of meeting people face to face as well too. Like you say, I think if you're getting seriously involved in BCH, or you're putting a significant amount of money into BCH, if you're making a pretty big bet on it, you just really want to try and find a way to get to something like this, because meeting so many of the people who are so heavily involved will increase your confidence. But whether or not you had, a strong confidence, that will let you see it happening for real. Like, you'll be able to talk to the people, get any questions you have answered, and just make a lot of contacts in the industry. I'm hoping that it's going to be just increasingly important every year as things go by, because of so many of the connections that are made there end up being what produces, projects that crop up 3 months, 6 months, a year later, because people have those connections, and people trust, honestly, people that they've met face to face a lot more, right? So it's just hard to overstate, I think, how much value you can get out of that. Plus, it's also just fun.
Yeah, and just adding to what you said, some people, this year if you really want to come to, and you find tap swap a little difficult, we'll work with you, but like that's not, this is really to the core, and every ticket has been purchased through the online marketplace, tap swap, and like it's possible, so it's very strange that they didn't make it a BTC form of payment over there. And, we want to work with people. We want people that want to come, of course, but also we want to live the community to its core. We want to live what we speak. This is the world that we want. And, we'll work with you. We'll teach you how to do these things. We're going to make the I think next year I don't know, overpromise yet, but be able to buy the NFT from the website, not go to the marketplace and things like that. And we need to do these things. We need to make delivering, doing business in BCH as easy as possible. And this is a good way for us to do and learn it. And any struggles that, potential ticket buyers have is good feedback for us to improve our product, So it's, we're serious about this. It's, if you're just like, use a credit card and show up, it's not the nature of what we're trying to accomplish. But if anyone in the audience is considering going and maybe not as crypto savvy yet, a little bit more on the outside, but wants to be a part of it, we'll work with you, help you get your NFT and your ticket and come and have a good time. And then we'll teach you. So next year you're a pro at it.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, I think every year we're just going to iterate on that and make it easier and easier with Wallet Connect, with buying the NFTs, with the marketplace, with the way, check-in works, all those things. We're just slowly building up those reps, because it's like any kind of muscle or process, if you don't use it, it goes to waste, right? Use it or lose it. And so I really like that we are pushing things in that way. And we're also via BLISS kind of learning a lesson in education as well to the broader community, because if somebody wants to come to BLISS, the first question is, why would I go to that instead of any of the other cryptocurrency conferences? So then that has a whole range of questions that they need to understand, like, what is our event about? Why is it different? Why is it just focused on BCH? Why is that different to some other conference that they could go to? Why do we have the upgrade there? What's involved with the upgrade, et cetera, et cetera? There's so many additional elements to it. And this year, I think we've done a reasonable job of putting out those new videos that we made. They've been very popular. I think we've released 2, and we have another couple kind of in the works that, by this point, maybe we are or aren't going to get around to them before the conference actually comes off. But I feel like those have been really successful, and probably next year that's something that we can double down on, I think, and do even better. But the value for that I've found so high, because not only does it attract people and get people interested in the event, but it teaches them something along the way. And a lot of people see that stuff and get interested in it, even if they don't come to BLISS. So it kind of serves that dual function of advertising BLISS and also getting the right information into the conversation, which is just so hard to do, around all these things, like you say, about the difference between UTXO and account chains, or how BCH upgrades, or, there's so many avenues that we can take on that. I wonder if you had any reflections about our
I was so excited about, I love the videos that you've made, and I was, happy to be a part of scripting the last one that came out. But we definitely have a list of other things that we just want to continue to feed out that will be BLISS branded. But, it works both ways. It's helping educate people on what's going on in BCH, and, and it's branded towards BLISS, and then you can, come to the event to be a part of it, to learn more. And I really like that we just made it clear on like what to expect at BLISS, rather than just like, hey, it's a BCH event, but like why we do what we do. It's not just to get people excited about it. It's we're there to build, and yeah, and so we have a long list that we need to get focused on. Right now we're down the wire, last things, printing this, doing all that. So, but yeah, as we do this over time, get better, get more efficient, get more, find useful people that help us. I know CM Works is super helpful with all that. He's super talented. And give him a quick shout out. I know he does a lot of work on the show, but
yeah, CM Works, it's amazing.
If anyone needs any kind of, digital design work and like that, he takes BCH, and you see the product he puts out. It's very clean and professional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, big shout out to CM Works. And like you say, that's also an element that I love about it, that it's practicing what we preach at every level. It's the same for us. Like, we get go and pitch our sponsors. They sponsor us in BCH, obviously, and then we pay our suppliers, in BCH. It's like the whole thing.
And we use BCH Bull to help ride the market.
Yes. Yes, exactly. We're hedging on BCH.
When we look at
minimize our risk.
budget and everything. So,
Okay, that's a bit of a traumatic, then if our contract's unhedged, the market moves, well, that's either a very good or very bad day. So we're trying.
right.
But that's right. Yeah, exactly. We are like using our own tools and stuff, and I think that just comes through. That just speaks volumes, because again, being at Op Next, it's kind of like, well, if I'm not even paying Bitcoin, to go to this event, like behind the scenes, are they stacking sats? Are they transacting? Like, what's going on? It just really feels like, maybe for, other industries, other events, other things, like that's ultimately where you win a competitive edge, is if you're doing what you say you should be doing. If those two things are in alignment, then that's going to compound on itself, because people can just see that you're practicing what you're preaching. So it just comes off as authentic, and all those tools around it too, the tools to sell the NFTs and so forth, that all takes a long time to build up. That doesn't happen quickly or easily. And if it's not used, it just gets unmaintained. We've got the third day as well too. It's going to be a pretty big 3 days for you and I. Like, I was wiped at the end of last year with 2 days. You think we can manage 3 days all out?
Yeah. I'm staying a couple extra days just to rest before I come home. It's a long flight. I come from America, so it's a good 12 hours on the plane. But I think I remember you walked out of it, wiped, but you're like, man, one more day would have been awesome to have.
Exactly.
Even though you were wiped, you were in for another day. But I think it'll offer more. I think last year we tried to section it where the exhibitors could also exhibit, the people that are exhibiting their projects could also have the time to check out other people's projects. So just making sure that everything's more well-rounded. And we'll see how 3 days goes, and we'll learn from that. And maybe it'll stay 3 days, maybe it'll go 4 days, maybe it'll be 2 days again. I don't know, but whatever's enough to make. And people that are coming from a long way, getting that extra time there to really soak it all in, because it's a lot of information in a short time. So I think spreading it out is more appropriate.
Yes, I mean, when you say 4 days, I mean, I think when I look around the industry, a lot of things are sort of 2 days, 3 days. I felt like 3 days was kind of essential. When you say 4 days, I kind of feel like, ooh, if you make it 4, it may as well be 5. We kind of get to the point where it's just like a week long BCH like bonanza. Maybe that's what we'll get to eventually. But
and stay tuned. We're working on a couple surprises, hopefully call-ins, things like that. So stay tuned. Well, we have most of it built out. We're working on some extra little surprises on the side. So there'll be some cool raffles going on too.
No more surprises. No. Shush. All right. He's gone too far now. We got to shut him down. He's too...
So we'll see.
We got to leave something. We got to leave something to surprise people. Be there, basically. That'll be the best way to be involved and get a full experience of BLISS. Now I forgot what I was going to say next. But anyway, that's it. Again, big shout out, thank you to all our sponsors. You've got a last chance, a couple of days of tickets left if you want to grab a Velma on TapSwap, and looking forward to seeing everyone there in person. And basically, if you see me in person and I haven't met you in person before, or even if I have and you've like changed your haircut or like wearing a different outfit or something like that, I may or may not recognize you. So just a warning to everyone. I meet a lot of people there in a short amount of time, and I don't always know you as well. People that I've talked to online or whatever, it's always kind of hard. That's what I was going to say. What about the upgrade? We're going to be doing the VM limits upgrade. Any thoughts on that in terms of, I mean, it's all just locked in. It's all just like last year it was smooth with Abla, basically run it back there. And I think we're going to be doing a lot of chat about the 2026 potential upgrades as well too. Yeah.
There's, VM limits. I think your video lined it out well. I think a lot of people and conversations out there, a lot of interest will be on privacy. And the ability to do that with the VM limits. So I think that's really big for BCH. And then 2026, I know there's a lot of proposals and chips, and people talking about block time changes. So that conversation and what may lead the market is going to take place. And if you care, be a part of the conversation. And if you can't come, we're going to have streaming too. Give your feedback. And, as the community is smaller these days, your feedback means more, so yeah, I'd be really excited to see, who is excited to work on the new capabilities of VM limits and making, there's probably companies already planning to do things. But yeah, I think we're locked in for this year. So 2026, what's it going to be? And briefly, I do want to talk about the block time, because again, I had that conversation before. And if anyone in the comments sees this later that has any feedback, it's becoming a very popular conversation now. It seems optimistic to speed up the block times to settle what the negative. There are a lot of positives are obviously associated with that. Just waiting on average 10 minutes to do a transaction, even though we have zero conf, which I've never had one issue with. I've been using BCH for 8 years, however many years now. I'm really excited to hear more about that conversation, as it's recently become a popular conversation. That'll probably be a part of some of the panel conversations too, but curious if you've heard any negative feedback towards faster block times.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I think it's an idea that people need to sit with a while, because I was not initially that enthused about it. And I think I even have a FAQ on my site about will BCH shorten the block time that I probably need to update with, this is under discussion and here's where you can find out more about the latest thinking, because I feel like even though I'm now actually quite sort of in favor of it, subject, I'm not saying that I would approve it instantly, but I like the idea. It just needs to work through the engineering of it and make sure there's no problems, but the concept I think is a good one, because like you say, the zero conf, that's always been the kind of BCH answer, is like, well, the block time doesn't really matter too much, because if you have the zero conf integrated ecosystem, then everything basically just works, which it does within BCH. But I think we're increasingly able to accept the reality that BCH is still a small coin and everybody's not within BCH. So logically, if we want to attract people into it, especially all this different payment providers, the exchanges, different services that are not going to integrate zero conf, it doesn't matter how much we educate them and explain to them, they're just used to confirmations. That's how all of crypto works, and BCH is slow in quotation marks in that regard, right? Maybe BTC can get away with it because they're big enough that everyone has to just suffer through it, although they don't, which is why they're increasingly just migrated to alternatives. But the benefits not only come from the quicker time, which is also more reliable. Like a 10-minute block time means a 17-minute average wait, because it might be a 45-minute block and you just happen to fall unluckily in the start of it, right? So a 10-minute block with a 17-minute wait, that's a long time, and if you just cut that down to 1 minute, which is then a 1.7 minute wait on average, that's still under 2 minutes. That's like competitive with Litecoin, with Dogecoin, with a lot of these other services. And because you have a smaller sampling window, you're less like if you get two far apart spaced blocks in a row on BCH, you're just screwed. At that point, you're like, okay, I'm waiting for my exchange deposit. I'm going to just check back on this in the morning or something like that, right? But if you have two longer blocks, longer gaps, but it's reduced 10x, it's still not way outside the realms of like, okay, this is kind of a hassle, but I can deal with it. But on the negative side, I think the things that people need to be worried about are the biggest obstacle in my mind, which I think a lot of people have, is that it feels like something you shouldn't change trivially. Because in my mind, there's kind of like 21 million is kind of a founding principle of Bitcoin. So you don't want to change that, right? And then like SHA-256, proof of work, you just don't want to change those things. So let's fix them. But then on the other, let's never change them, basically, they're immutable. But then on the other side, you have things like the block size, which the BCH community was obviously like, let's just do ABLA, and that's just a lot better, and everyone's been super happy with that. But for the BTC guys, that's still like a sacred cow, like that can never be touched, or whatever copy arguments they make around that, right? So it's really a question of, does 10-minute block time fall on the thing that it needs to be fixed forever, or should it be adjustable, like the block size, or like the difficulty as well? It's like the difficulty changes, and that's just automated into an algorithm. There was not some sacred 2016 blocks that we always needed to do difficulty. We just made it every single block, and it was a lot better, and everybody loves it. So I feel like it's to me, the 10-minute block time started on one side in my mind, but now it's shifted to the other side, where I'm like, no, actually it would be better if it was adjustable, or we had engineered whatever was the optimal value and just done that, right? Because the reason to keep the 21 million cap is because of economics, and the reason to keep the SHA-256 is because of the investment in mining infrastructure. But there's not actually a reason, as far as I know, that 10 minutes is like some perfect value. It's just a trade-off between, on the short time, if you make blocks too short, then you get increasing amounts of orphans, because blocks take time to propagate on the network. So you have more money lost to people getting blocks that then get orphaned by other miners. So you don't want to make it too short, but on the other hand, you don't want to make it too long, because then it's a pain in the ass for all the users, right? So we're kind of trading off between those two things, and there's no reason that 10 minutes was the perfect value. It was just what Satoshi picked sounded good, and it was kind of good enough to get the whole system running. But if we run the numbers and the analysis finds out that 1 minute is better, or 2 minutes is better, or 30 seconds is better, well, then maybe it just is better. And why wouldn't we want to, adapt to that? And because not only do you have the benefit to the people who are outside of BCH, but you have the benefit inside BCH with DeFi, because our DeFi is getting a lot better, like we've been talking about. And there are some things in DeFi that zero conf doesn't work for. Like, you can't just, rely on something until it's actually got into a block because of the specific type of contract you're using. So I think that's the biggest problem, is the engineering part of it. A second problem, or the perception that people have that we can change it. A second part of the problem, which I know someone like Emergent Reasons is big on, is talking to the exchanges and making sure both the exchanges and the miners don't feel like this is us, moving the foundations underneath them. That can be overcome as long as we talk to them and communicate with them and say, hey guys, we're going to do this, and they agree. And other coins have done this in the past, so it's not like some way out there big change, but we do need to get the communication right, because the exchanges might say, well, we have BCH requires 10 confirmations, and if we just speed it up 10x without changing them, which puts the proof of work at only 10%, even if it's faster, then they might feel like, what are you guys trying to screw around with us or what? But if we give them a heads up ahead of time, and then they can either adjust it to 100 to compensate, or they can just stick with it, then I don't see why that would be kind of a problem.
Well, question, would anything play out in a scenario, would it be any worse in a scenario of like a 51% attack or something like that, with blocks settling faster?
No, I don't think so, because it might even be better. I mean, I haven't really thought it all through, but my instinct is it would even be better, because if you have faster blocks, then you're getting, more per unit time, right? Which means that the threshold to actually hit a block is lower, right? Because you're going to need people to hit 10 blocks in the same window of time that you would need them to hit like one block across the whole network, right? So faster block times are better for smaller miners, because them, they might have lower hash rate, so they're going to get more consistent income. Like if they're 1% of the network, instead of hitting, one block every 10 days, maybe they hit it one block every day. It's just a block that was only
Second question,
10%, right?
Would it change? I'm assuming it would change the reward structure.
Well, the idea is that we're not going to change the reward structure. You just restructure everything. So the proposal that BCH Audits has been working on factors in all of that stuff. So as you adjust the block time down from, let's say, for example, 10 minutes to 1 minute, you also cut the reward per block 10x so that the emission schedule is the same, right? It's
Right.
just that instead of having 3.125 BCH per block at the moment, you have 0.3125 per 1 minute block, but it still adds up to over the 10 minutes, it's the same amount, right? And it would be the same for ABLA and the same for the difficulty adjustment algorithm. And I'm thinking, is there one other, there's some other element, contracts. Like if you have a time locked contract for 1,000 blocks, it would be changed so that 1,000 blocks would then be 10,000 blocks equivalent under a 1 minute block time. So we can change the speed of the blocks without having it impact things like the inflation schedule or ABLA or the difficulty adjustment. They just adjust to that. And that's actually a brilliant part to the proposal, I think, is if we do that and we roll that out, then you kind of only need to do that once, because if we change all the code to factor in, whatever is the current time, then if we later decide, okay, 1 minute was a bit quick, we find those problems and we got to raise it to 2 minutes, then we can just, change it from 1 minute to 2 minute, right? You wouldn't need to redo all the work to recalculate everything. If the algorithm, if the node software already just looks, okay, what's the block time, factor that all in to get this result, then you can change it later, or we could make it quicker. Maybe we do 1 minute, bandwidth goes, exponential even more than it was, and we decide, wait, now 30 seconds is safe, and we can just cut it again. So once you've done the change once, changing it later is also easier, which to me seems like a win.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, because if you look at certain statistics, I don't know the total amount, but I know, like, for example, on BitPay, like Litecoin's always like a little bit more than BCH2, and again, like you said, it's within our community. Again, I've never had one issue. For me, BCH is super fast because ZeroConf is great, but there's obviously outside sentiment that we just keep on checking the boxes on, like, why not BCH? Like, we have all of this. Another feather in our cap there could be advantageous. So we'll see. And anyone else? This will be a big part of the conversation, I think, over the next year, and maybe in a year from now we have faster blocks. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, I think we're unlikely for the chip to be ready for 2026, but maybe I think it's more likely that we have the discussion this year, 2026, and then maybe it comes up on the agenda like really serious for 2027. And this is something that I've been talking about on the show, is that our timeline is expanding. Last year at BLISS, well, years ago, BCH was like doing upgrades, which all happened in the last 1 week or something, And last year at BLISS, we were talking about VM limits, 2025. What are we going to do? Now, 2025, everything's done. Like, everything's working. Everything's locked in for the VM limits. In fact, the 2026 proposals, some of them are already coded and implemented today. So they're not going to go live, but you can already test them out if you're, very interested in the bleeding edge stuff. And now we're even talking, well, what about these 2027 proposals? What about 1 minute blocks?
It's incredible because, I remember as we were getting ready for BLISS, we said maybe no upgrade this year. And now, like, holy cow, like, you can tell the community is, like, really embracing that culture of where and how to approve. And not everything might get approved, of course, but just the sparking the innovative nature within the community is huge. So yeah, that's incredible that we already have things locked in to play with for 2026, when last year we didn't know if we were getting anything.
Well, we had like the big, like, for instance, the big nums thing was a little bit last minute, so that was a bit of a bump in the pipeline, but I think everybody was happy with the result of that, right? Like, there hasn't been any problems that have come about from that, at least not, so far. Like, everyone's kind of like, okay, that's kind of working out in terms of the lock-in, right? So I think that's good. And then this year we'll talk about the 2026 chips, which have already been fairly refined. Like, it's only May. So then we'll have 6 months for everyone to really chew over them, and maybe even people just start approving it way ahead of schedule because it's like obvious that we're going to do it. And then the mental bandwidth can go on to other things like the 1 minute blocks. I still really want to see UTXO commitments come into the discussion a bit more, but it's just the case that there's only so many resources, right? So if you get through the first couple things, then it creates more room on the plate for that development effort to go into other stuff, right? UTXO commitments, quantum resistant stuff doesn't seem critical, but it's like let's get some movement going, I don't know.
Yeah. Very cool.
And ideally, like probably, hopefully, there will be more development going on above the protocol layer as well too. Like, there'll be less and less need, hopefully, to change the actual BCH protocol. Like, we might get to the stage where it's like, okay, we don't really have a protocol upgrade because we don't really need any. But instead, all the devs have been putting all their effort, and then our app ecosystem is just going to go crazy because all that extra dev power is not being dedicated to that. Like, once you get the foundations right, you don't need to revisit them over and over and over again. So, yeah, I don't know. Or maybe people will keep cooking up stuff, sub Satoshis. Like, there's loads of stuff. The more you change, the more suddenly there's more opportunities discovered, I guess.
Well, one question about OpNext, are you seeing, as you're delving into, and and I don't know if we're quite on it yet as we're wrapping up this side on the upgrades.
No, we can go into that. Yeah, just if it's related. Yeah.
It's related from the perspective is that, the OpNext effort is to create a more innovative culture within BTC. And I thought, from what I listened to, the conversations were very civil, and I thought both sides handled themselves very appropriate. Like, are you seeing an effort from them to start wanting to tinker around and really play with BCH as a workable tool with everything that we're building? Are you seeing that kind of behavior happen yet, or do you see that happen at some point? Because what I'm getting to is when you said resources, it made me think. We have seen new developers come up in the ecosystem. Callisti, Matthew, and these new all stars in the community building cool things. Where are those? And even like the first gentleman you spoke to there said something of the nature that
Charlie.
Yeah.
So he was in the live stream we did. We talked to Charlie and Reardon. So Charlie was one of the organizers of the conference. He was the equivalent of you and I for BLISS, and Jonathan. He was one of the two guys that was like running it. So it was so cool as well that we ran the live stream, and then he obviously I feel like he really appreciated that, the fact that we were there, we were doing some extra coverage, and he came to sit on and talk to us about it and give his point of view in a very, calm, collected way, and obviously promote his event a little bit. But he didn't have to do that. He's running his own event. He was plenty busy, but he took, 20 minutes or half an hour out of his schedule to come and sit with us and talk about it. And I honestly think, I tweeted after the event, like, I think he's one of the two people that I was most impressed by at OpNext. So huge shout out to Charlie. He did a fantastic job with OpNext, and it was great meeting him and stuff. But yeah, anyway, go on. That's who you're referencing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm trying to remember what he said now. I kind of lost my thought a little bit, but I guess that question, if these developers want to build and they want to see what they're building come to life somewhere, like how long are they already starting to, curiosity to engage in actually seeing their work, come to fruition? I assume at some point that'll happen, and I'm curious if you agree with me or not. But secondly, it may already be happening, or starting to engage, and that's why I think your engagement. Where these next series? Actually, that's what I was thinking. Was he mentioned that it's from even like people building things. To get them into crypto, it's a different world of building things. You can't just take developers off the shelf to build for you. You need certain kinds of developers that understand the scripting language and the talent levels. Where do we get the new talent from to continue to increase our bandwidth to build new innovative products? That was what I was building from his conversation. I found to be interesting, is that just because you can code a little bit doesn't mean, you're going to, you can't just, I want to build something, grab that guy. They're not sitting on the shelf.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's two elements to that. So firstly, like you say, you can't just grab anyone, but that's something that we can attack directly, right? The better our tooling and documentation is, the more you can just grab anyone and then they can be
Very cool.
going. So it doesn't all have to be, he talked about it as an arcane science. It doesn't all have to be like that. The protocol stuff is definitely unavoidably going to be a bit like that. But in terms of building like at the application layer, it doesn't have to be like that. And we can do a lot of good work in that sense by having good tooling, by having good documentation, by making the ecosystem attractive and interesting to developers, by having good salaries on offer. All those things will tempt people in, and then they'll learn those skills, right? But the lower we can make the barrier of entry, the better. But in terms of actually your question, which is do I feel like BCH was starting to get traction or interest among the Op Next crowd? I was actually surprised at how little they know. Really. Like, I was caught off guard. Not caught off guard exactly, but I feel like, we're making a lot of noise on Twitter. We've spent all these years slowly educating them and then dunking on them and then coming up with all the threads that I have now of like, we already have this that you want and this that you want and this that you want, all this stuff. I felt like it's hard for me to conceive of, because if I was in their shoes, I would have already done a huge deep dive on this stuff and got really familiar with it, because we're the most directly comparable thing to what they're doing, but with a completely different mindset. It's so like, why would you ignore that? That seems crazy to me. But of course, they don't think that, because otherwise they would be me and they would already be in the BCH ecosystem. If they thought like we thought about it, they would already be here, but They don't. So I really felt like, like Reardon, who we talked to, he has been more involved. And so he has looked into some of this stuff and he has seen that it's good. And he was kind of saying, yeah, I wish that you guys were building this stuff in BTC. That would be awesome. And he even said to us, like, somebody said to him, like, what are these BCH guys doing here? I think they're kind of incompetent. Like, they don't really know what we're doing. And he replied and said, well, like, I think you just need to catch up with the latest, because if you look into what they've been doing the last 2 or 3 years, like, it's actually pretty good stuff, So he was sort of indirectly evangelizing for BCH in that sense. But he has been one of the most engaged ones in that way, right? Of the broader crowd, like, they just have no idea. They're honestly like clueless, which makes sense because they are in a bigger ecosystem, right? So the way it is for us is like, we have the BCH stuff that's going out on this end of the spectrum, and then somewhere in there is the Op Next crowd who want to add CTV, they want to add cat, whatever. To us, that's like the fringe of our sphere, is there. But to them, we're on the fringe in the other direction. And on their other side is all the ossifiers, the laser eyes, don't fork this, don't add anything, 21 million, whatever. Like, so they're fighting a whole battle with those guys that we don't have to do anymore, because we've completely disconnected from that. Okay, it took a few years, we had to split, we got dumped on, etc. But that's now like not a problem at all. BCH people are not weighed down by this constant nonsense that they still have to deal with every single day. So for our stuff to break through into their attention, it has to be so overwhelmingly like blowing them out of the water, which it is, but just not quite yet. Like, again, it comes down to is UX, slick products, big money moving into BCH, all that stuff will start to alert them. But yeah, and obviously day by day, the show grows, more people tune in, they find out what's going on. But I was really like quite surprised. Like, even Jameson Lopp gave this talk about his, hard forks and about doing a adjustable block size. And he didn't mention Abla. And we asked him after, like, what was up with that? And then he said, okay, yeah, I knew about Abla, but I forgot about it when I was doing my notes to put it on the slides, and I didn't like double check you know, on that bit of the research and stuff, like he was giving a whole talk about block size increases and adjusting the block size and stuff. The most obvious thing to do, literally the most obvious thing to do, is to look into what is the state of play on BCH, and he didn't even do that. So it's like, and he was the one giving a talk on it, you know, let alone the audience who have no reason to look into it. So even though the word is like slowly seeping in there, like, wait, have you been looking at what the BCH guys have been doing, or just shit talking us and saying they're stupid idiots who don't know what they're doing? That's kind of falling apart because they're and also as well, with me being there, I found that really interesting because I am at their conference, which in their mind, it should be, what is this guy doing here? Like, why have these BCH people started showing up to our conference? That should have been a red, you know, alert basically in their mind, because it means that BCH is going well, it's stable, there's no infighting, everything's working, and we have spare resources to come and see what they're up to. Like that should be like, why has this started happening again? You know, I thought those B caches were all poor and gone.
Yeah,
but that,
yeah.
you know,
He said something interesting. I think he said Charlie was the first guy. What was his name again?
Yeah.
Charlie. Because he said he wanted to build bridges and not walls, you know, around it too. And that's, you know, and one, you know, some people, I feel like their view has been like, let's build walls to protect ourselves. Maybe, I mean, if your goal is just for your ticker to be the best, but you know, if you went to that conference and they were saying the things that you believed, you know, then that would be attractive to you towards that chain. So it's, so I wonder how much they will build that bridge. Like almost like a drastic scenario. Like, could we show up and have a booth next year? Like, or just go in attendance. And I wanted to go. I've been doing a lot of traveling. I think it's awesome you went. And I don't know if you plan to go back, but I would definitely like to attend some of those events and just see, you know, from a general crypto interest, what's going on in the ecosystem and who's doing the most interesting things, rather than being, I'm right, you know, I'm right because, right? I'm right because, having that kind of validation rather than just building walls. So, and that's where I thought there was good nature in it, that, you know, that his dialogue is such that he wants to hear and do things. And it didn't sound like he was too much from the era of high contention. No. I could be wrong about that. So it's a completely different perspective than what, you know, what we've been through, you know, what we're almost used to.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, like you say, I would definitely, I thought it was a great event. I would recommend it, and I would be interested in going again for sure. I mean, it would depend on the specifics, right? But I think that's what I think would be the funniest thing is if they run it again next year. They're doing one in about 6 months. We'll see where things are at with that. That might be a bit too soon. You know, I might you know, I can't be spending all my time going to BTC conferences. We've got to actually build BCH as well, right? But maybe if they did one next year, like, would I go to that? I would certainly consider it. But I think it would be funny if they did it again next year. And like this time, Callisti and Jet and I went. And then next time, and Jerry as well was there, right? So we had the 4 of us. Then if next year it was like 6 or 7, you know, it was like the BCH contingent was just growing. I wonder if that would also create some sort of discussion or sort of light bulb moment, you know, among them, because, you know, to be fair, or to give them credit, there's a lot of things that the BTC community is doing that the BCH community in reverse, you know, we would be like completely out of the loop on. And so it's maybe not stuff that we're super concerned about, but that's kind of the whole point. They are concerned about it, which is like the custodian panel, like big business, mining, trying to figure out the L2 related stuff. Like none of that conversation, talent, money, resources, interest. We're just kind of like, okay, you guys deal with that. But as BCH grows, I'm hoping we can attract, you know, those people to come and talk about that in a BCH context, right? Because those are all important things that somebody needs to be handling and doing. So it was a bit of an insight in that way. You know, they're missing some stuff from our camp, and we're definitely missing a lot from their camp as well too. Although,
yeah. I think that's really good for you, and that's the, you know, building bridges not walls conversation. What we can, it's not that we're just going to be able to attract them, but we can also learn things. And not saying we even want to attract them. I thought you said something very interesting. Is we can build the better, you know, tooling on top. It just makes me think like, 20 years ago, I couldn't make a website. Now I can go on Wix, and even some of me that's not technical can create a website. And if we can continue down that road path, and I kind of jumped around two ideas there, but I just wanted to capture what you were saying. But yeah, I would definitely make an effort to be at the next one. Just the travel schedule didn't work, and I think that would look really good amongst the community that we are showing up to be a part of that bridge and come with that nature and see what happens.
Yeah, it just helps to like break down a lot of those walls and stuff. So I got to say as well too, we've got my notes on the slide here about how I found Op Next overall. Like basically the confusion and delays that you see on Twitter and stuff. I was wondering if in person it would be different, like maybe behind the scenes there was a bit of chat like, okay guys, let's line this up and get this going. No, they are actually just in a mess where nobody really knows what's going on. They're kind of slowly coordinating a bit, but not really. I didn't find out that there was some upcoming efforts to launch a client and go hard on an upgrade, nothing like that. And they have got Arc and BitVM were discussed a lot, which is basically just the replacement for Lightning Network. Like now all their hopes for making payments work is in this Arc and BitVM basically instead of Lightning Network, and probably is also going to fail in the long run. It's like convoluted stuff that engineers love, but in terms of actually delivering a good result, very unlikely, and a lot of money and time is going to be wasted on that. I mean, one of the there was two really good talks given again by Jameson Lopp and also by James O'Byrne gave a talk which I highly recommend people to look up, which was about scaling and on-chain, the block size and so forth. And basically this stuff that they were talking about was not new to me. Like I felt like this was all stuff that the BCH community discussed and figured out during the block size war, basically, and afterwards. But it was just really great that they are now talking about that again. Like they talked about that then with us. Obviously, there was censorship and they decided on their own route. And then for many years, they were not talking about it. And now they've started talking about it again. And maybe they aren't coming to all the right conclusions straight away, but they're at least bringing it into the conversation. And the propaganda, we have a hard time debunking, because if we say to them, look, this is wrong, et cetera, even if we have all the facts, they just say these stupid B caches, like they're trying to sabotage us or they're idiots or whatever, right? But if their own, influential developers and people who have been in their community start talking about it, then they take, it's like if they're saying the same thing, but they from a different source, they take it more seriously, So that was really good. But the key, amazing moment was on the final closing panel where Callisti called out basically the whole conference. We have the live stream moment here. Jet's going to pull up. I will warn you that you can't, Callisti's like in the crowd. He's not mic'd up, so you can't hear the audio from him quite as precisely, but I'll say what he said afterwards. And this was just, in the final moments of the panel, Callisti is in the front row and just talking to the guys on stage here. Have a listen to this.
About to have smart contracts, right? Like he wants a catalyst to be able to go out and sell to the world, like buy more Bitcoin. So I do think that that's a little bit of, there shouldn't be this kind of fear of ghosts of, big entities that will shut things down before they even get started. To Jameson's point, we should have some, confidence and have some agency and just going out and doing things. And I think we would be surprised at, how on board most people are and how little resistance actually would be able to pop up.
Do not ask, who is going to allow me.
Yes.
Ask who is going to stop me.
Powerful.
Merit based. Are you going to stop me?
Yeah.
That's great.
What?
I was just sitting there. You've got experienced coders all up in this room.
somebody just look at it. Okay, what are you guys actually afraid of? Just merge it in your own client. Work it. It's open source. Go run the client. Okay, look, we just ran this poll in the chat earlier. 4% of people in this room who responded to that poll said if CTV were to be activated on December 1st of this year, you'd all be for it. What are you afraid of?
When you're right, you're right.
That's the bubble talking.
Yeah, this is bubble
Yes.
talking.
Who's, like I said, I think pretty much everyone in this room wants to see innovation continue. And what are we afraid of? I think the answer has kind of been percolating, like we're afraid of everyone else. What are they going to think? What are they going to do?
If there's a choice split in that, right, from you not finding out. You got coins on both sides of that split. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, chain splits are to be avoided.
Now you got the
at all
ordinals
costs.
people. You
Yeah.
said airdrop in different words.
We
So
got- yeah.
All right, cut it there. So-
I think we.
Like basically, you can kind of hear the thrust of it is they started out, they were saying like we should just take action and just not let our fears get in our way of it or anything. And so, Jameson says, oh, look, ask who's going to stop me. And so Callisti puts his hand up in the audience and is like, who is stopping you? Like, why don't you just make a client? Why don't you launch CTV? What are you waiting for? Now, what you got to understand is this wasn't kind of completely out of the blue, because on this panel, if you watch it, they had already sort of started interacting with the audience. Other people were kind of shouting in suggestions from the crowd. They were kind of doing responses to the question. So he was it wasn't like he had interrupted to add this. This was already the way things are going. But he's in, I thought that there would be in that moment, as he was saying it, I thought that there would be a more negative reaction from the crowd, or even just more a sense of like, holy shit. At the time, I don't think I got that. When he says, look, just fork it, add CTV, what are you waiting for? Like, we've got plenty of experienced coders. I actually added a poll in the chat, in the Telegram group for the event, and asked, if CTV was going to get activated December 1st, would you be in favor of it? And we got something like 40 votes out of, 70 people attending something. And it was like 94% of people said, yes, they would be in favor of it, right? So it was clear that the consensus, quote unquote, among the people in attendance was overwhelmingly in favor of like, let's fucking actually do it. But they can't pull the trigger. They're too passive to do it in BCH. Of course, that's like nonsense to us, because it's like, we need a bigger block. You just let's go. And what are we waiting for? That's what this whole permissionless stuff is about. But they are still honestly just like timid and worried about, even right after they'd said that. And so when he calls them out, if you listen very closely, their immediate reaction is the guy on in the second from the left. He says, when you're right, you're right. He was instantly like, yeah, that's it. And then Jameson cuts over him and says, what are we afraid of? It's all the other people, which is just complete nonsense. And then Callisti's counter was, but like, what's the problem? Just launch a CTV fork, get dumped. You'll still have your BTC that you can sit on, but now you have at least a CTV branch. That's a little bit oversimplifying the matter, because the fact is, if they want to launch a CTV or some other fork, they kind of need to go all in, or at least somewhat, they need to put some chips in the pot, because if they launch it, but then nobody, even the people who believe in it, buys it, and it just gets dumped straight to zero, then everyone will be like, that failed. Piss off with this. Please don't do it again. So it's not as simple as that they can just launch it, but they are still sort of treading around the whole issue. And at that moment, I thought there would be more of a reaction in terms of like, even somebody else shouting out from the crowd, or in terms of everyone feeling like, wow, that was a big call out. And I don't think there was necessarily in the moment, but I think it hit home in the minds of the people there, because then we sort of started to see the conversation change a little bit in the following days on Twitter as a result. But it really was quite an amazing thing, right? That in comparison to something like BLISS, you go to BLISS, we're doing an upgrade, it's all been decided, everyone's on the same page, it ships, everyone does a round of applause, and it's like moving on to the next thing. Whereas they have these conferences where there is no upgrade. Nobody really knows what they're going to do for an upgrade, or when it is, or how they're going to do it. Nobody is prepared to be the one to go out on a limb and actually fork the code or put it in. Nobody can get past the Bitcoin Core merge gatekeepers. Like, it's just a whole confused mess. It's like, how is this a bunch of men in their age 30 to 60 who can't agree on a schedule and ship a piece of software? It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe with their consensus, what they believe is we ship CTV, we will get forked, right? Like that's why they won't do it. And then
yes,
then I don't want to not be on the winning team, my precious market cap. But like you said, there's another way for that. I think you could view it differently. You could view it as either I got kicked out, and why not still kind of work on both? I guess that doesn't really happen in the tribal nature of crypto. It's go all in on what you believe building. Certainly that's what happened with Bitcoin Cash. And it brings me back to, like, there was a long hope and fight through everything in the first time to keep BTC together. And I think this is just a starting of a brewing of a community that is going to do something if they don't get what they want. And I just feel like that is those were the B cashers on stage that were on stages in 2015, 2016, that didn't, there was a lot of effort not to have the fork happen, to reach a consensus. And at the end of the day, like you said, it's a bunch of men. Like, what are you doing with your life? Is your life going to be not doing what you believe, or are you going to just just cower down? And it's overall seems like at the end of the day, while they're trying to do something, if they eventually will they forever be cowardice, or will they do something? That's what Callisti called them out. Like, just ship your client. Like, what are you waiting for? And I see the value of you built something so big and valuable to step away from that, or being a part of it, at least to some extent. And the challenge is to move away from that, and just if we find these people useful or not, they're obviously important people. Just how do you handle that with kids' gloves, and say, go that direction, come this way, stay there? It's very telling, but it's just interesting that it's occurring, right? Like that that they're putting in effort. They want to do something. They don't know which way to go. Like you said, it's confusion, delays, and they're just confused. They don't know what they want or should do, and at some point they will do something, I think.
Well, that's right. Because there's two forces that are driving them to a critical inflection, because in the absence of doing anything, nothing will happen, obviously, right? So there's two things that are kind of like the fire, burning the not the candle, the string on the dynamite. One is just time. As time just goes on and they don't see sweeping adoption all around the world, eventually they realize we've got to change something. Otherwise, we're not going to have Bitcoin global adoption. Like, it's that simple. So that's one part of it. And the second part of it is BCH. That candle, that string, whatever you call it, is burning faster because BCH is succeeding, because we're putting the pressure on them. Like I said, they're still mostly kind of unaware actually how far BCH is ahead. They have no concept of that. But they are maybe starting to get the idea, even just us being in the front row there, that they don't have forever. Like, we are coming, we're still building, we didn't go away. We're not just endlessly splitting ourselves into some irrelevant mess. We've got a bit of technology, we've got something going, we've got some good ideas or something. And it's like, if you're not making forward progress, eventually your competitors just outrun. It's the turtle in the hare, right? Doesn't matter how much faster you are, if you just stop, eventually you're going to get overtaken. And that's
and it's for those people that really believe, and there's those people that really believe that in peer-to-peer electronic cash. It's where the reason they think they're going to get forced is because the real mission of BTC is to see if I can get a richer person to buy it, and and to buy it so I can go up, and how long can that go on? And if you believe that's what you want to do, like that's the coin for you, or go build your own. But it's like, why would you? My question would be and probably the question in their head is like, and if they do this, they're underestimating going through trying to rebuild a blockchain, right? If they were to say, yeah, we're going to fork, why would you fork and go create your own version of BTC right now, there's so many other coins out there and interesting projects to just go be a part of. Like, it's very hard to do. And don't get me wrong, people probably will try to do that. People still do that. We just had eCash try to do, is doing that. But I think that's why us building bridges is important. And even Charlie said in your speech is that there's conversations of seeing Bitcoin Cash as a backup plan, which honestly, I'm not going to lie, I think, for years, and it's dwindled over the years, but I always saw, like, if BTC ever gets their crap straight, like, that's the backup plan. Like, if they start building peer-to-peer electronic cash, like, that's, but it just, as years go on, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But we'll see if ARC BitVM is the answer.
Well, Jingle Bob has said it in the chat. He said, the people who put P2P cash for the world above their own reputation/wealth have already left. Only new people would dare, and they have no power. And that's exactly it. The people who have the balls to actually, and the agency to actually just get on and get cracking. Well, we did that in 2017, and here we are today with 8 years of upgrades. And okay, the price, there was some hiccups along the way, but we're making forward progress. While they're still over there, cowed into inactivity by mysterious social, pressure or inability to actually just put it all on the line. Because that's right, we didn't have it in that video, but there was another panel that they had with 5 guys who were more of these ossifier types. Somebody asked them at the end, they said, look, in 2017, I knew what Bitcoin was, but now it's 2025. I kind of don't really know what is it. Like, what's the point of Bitcoin? And there was 5 guys on that panel, and they all gave different answers, and none of them were P2P cash. Like, one guy said, oh, it's kind of a digital asset kind of thing. One guy said it's like a form of energy storage or something like that. They all had these kind of different, copy answers, but none of them said it's a P2P cash system. And they all had different answers. So it's not like even amongst themselves, they were agreed on what it was. And so because they don't have a direction, they don't have a North Star, they're just drifting. And that's what some people are happy with. And that's the people who are still there. But the ones who are not, they have to make a hard choice. Either they have to take action and seriously try and push an upgrade, which they just perpetually delay and never get around to. They can convert to BCH, which they'll eventually realize is the best option, but they have to work through their cognitive dissonance, or they can just shut up and suffer. But at some point, having these conferences is just going to feel ridiculous to them, where they're all there for they had an OpNext conference last year. This was the second one. And it's like, last year, they were like, are we going to do CAD? Are we going to do CTV? Then they have another one a year later. Are we going to do CAD? Are we going to do CTV? What are we going to do? If they have another one next year, it's like, are we going to do a CTV? Like, eventually, how ridiculous it is even going to occur to them. And then that opens their mind.
And I think what we learned too, and I think you said it in the interview too, like when you fork, like you're just creating, that means you're in a minority. You didn't get consensus. You have all of these sellers against you, and like, we stand here 8 years later, like, who is still like who are the sellers left in BCH? There's not, obviously there's traders and things like that too, but I'm just saying, like, that was a very challenging thing to get through, and probably why they know it's so hard. And like, again, Jingle Bell's comment is, we were willing to go through that, and that amongst other challenges. And now you look at the last 3 years of BCH, it's like, holy cow, like, it's
working.
It's very good.
You have to pay that price. I mean, I always think of it like there's a joke that goes, why is divorce so expensive? Because it's worth it, right? And it's like, that's the exact same thing. Like, it costs so much for the BCH community to get free, get aligned, stay on P2P cash, not have hijackers and all kinds of shit involved. And that was super, super expensive. But once you've paid the price, you've paid it. You don't have to pay it a second time. You're just free after that, right? And they're still on the pre-side of that. They haven't even really come to terms with the fact that it's going to be a divorce, really, that they are going to have. They still believe to themselves, like, oh, we can talk everyone into it or whatever. It's not going to happen. And as the years roll on, they're slowly going to learn that lesson. Anyway, Jet, I want to get you in here. You were there with Callisti calling out the panel. What was your impression or lessons from that?
I was surprised that there wasn't more pushback to that. I feel like the most pushback we saw was about the BIP numbers stuff. I don't really, yeah, I feel like it was just kind of dancing around actually doing something. I feel like it's all kind of connected though, because like they're just, yeah, all those PRs are just sitting there. No one's even willing to review them, right? Everyone's busy or some shit. I don't think anything's ever going to get done. I do think that like more Bcashers showing up would be amazing. I think it would actually encourage, I think like, you know, given a long enough timeline, they're all going to be Bcashers anyway. So if we just like up the numbers maybe next year, who knows?
Yeah, what if God, this is me going off on a one. What if we just like maybe not outnumber them, but like we're a large
It's a
percentage of the
Bcash conference
attendees.
now.
That's right. I feel like that's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen. Is because
Oh,
if they're
man.
just having these conversations, like we want to have these upgraded tools, we want to have all this stuff. As the percentage of people that are there is like, it's in BCH, bro. You can literally just do it today, right
Oh,
now.
man.
Like,
That
go
is-
home, switch on your laptop, you know, open up BitAuth, and boom, there's all your introspection opcodes. There's all your this. There's all your that. We've already got it all. Because then it's like, you know, the first step, you know, once you take your first step, well, then you've fallen off the cliff, if you know what I'm saying. Like, that makes it sound bad, but it's kind of like the barrier is there, but once you just get over that little bit, then suddenly they'll be like, wait a second, you guys have all this stuff. Is this the latest cutting edge stuff? No. We've had that for, you know, 6 years, 8 years, whatever. And then the glitch says IRL DDoS all the BTC conferences, lol. Exactly. It's like it's not a DDoS though, because a DDoS is where you flood the system to shut down the conversation. It would be the opposite. It would be an IRL amplification, basically.
Yeah. I think we just build off what Charlie said. Hey, we want to build these bridges. We're here. We're rooting for you. We hope you guys get these things. Like, we were all BTCers before. Good luck. If not, like, you know, like if anyone wants to still do this, you know, over here, like you're
welcome to join.
You're welcome to. Yeah, no, Jeremy, that was that was very, again, it was super smart idea to go there. And just I don't know, I just think there's more talent. It was just very overall positive experience on both sides to see that, like, hey, we're not here to fight you. There's fights on Twitter and things that are kind of silly, and like the temperature, which is very low versus how it feels online at times. And even Callisti said that it's like, you know, it's, you know, things, you know, online arguments are kind of silly. People get more excited or it's easier to type things, and when you're just having conversations, you're really realizing at the end of the day you're talking to humans, you know, a human element. I'll definitely maybe we make a push to get people out there. Maybe we do like a flip starter, bring people to up next.
Okay, and on that topic, you know, this stuff, I think it made a huge difference. I think it made a huge difference us being there. And if you want to see more of that stuff, well, it ain't free for us to organize that, get everyone out there, hotels, etc., etc. So I really just want to shout out. We've got a flip starter running for the BCH podcast right now. Or not a flip starter, but a FundMe. So you can go to fundme.cash/campaign/25. We're still, that's for the episodes 146 to 155, but where we have, like, you know, spare resources or whatever, you know, it helps us do stuff like go and do that coverage, be there in person. And if you want to chip in some sats, like, that would just be absolutely amazing. And not just that, but we've also today put out the FundMe for Celine. So there's also one there with Callisti has done an amazing job. He's written up all what we did from the last flip starter, what we delivered, what we didn't, why or why not, you know, everything was delivered or not on a certain time frame, what our plan is for the year going forward. There's with a budget, there's a mega amount of information about everything there. And of course it was the same, like, we were there, we were wearing our Celine hats, you know, walking around. We got a couple people to try out Celine all of this stuff. So that would be campaign number 31, fundme.cash/campaign/31. So if you're enjoying this kind of stuff, if you think BCH needs more representation, oh, nice. Our Celine thing is already up at 33%. Majamalu, shout out to him, 140 BCH straight in there. Yeah, gosh, Satoshi, bless that man. If we, I mean, you see how far Celine has come in the last year, right? Like, if we can get, one more year where we're gonna, maybe add some different monetization elements. We've got some stuff that I don't want to announce yet, but we're cooking in the background, which I think people are going to be like, "Wow, that is killer." That would be a game changer, I think, if we can get through one more year. So all this is to say, if you're enjoying the podcast, you're enjoying Celine, you're enjoying all the advocacy work we do and the onboarding tools we produce and stuff like that, this is just the grind that we put in every single day. And if we're not getting paid for it, then we have to we have to do other stuff. Like, at the end of the day, you got to eat. So check out fundme.cash campaigns 25 and 31 if you want to chip in some funding for that. It would be very, very much appreciated. All right, we got something else I want to touch on as well. You got a little bit more time, Ryan? You in a rush, or?
No, I'm good. I see a few more slides.
Okay, all right. We got this this week. We've had literally the hijacking become admitted by the BTC community after so many years of pretending it wasn't happening, refusing to acknowledge it, getting called out over and over and over again. As always, truth doesn't rust, and it's got to the point that they now just admit it. So here's the quote, quote at Hodl Magoo. Quote, almost no one is being honest with you, so I'm going to be truthful. Yes, Bitcoin is being captured by Wall Street, and then it will be captured by the central planners and sovereign states. This was always going to happen if Bitcoin was ever going to be successful. The good news is that it is the only way Bitcoin can actually change these institutions from the inside. Kind of hard to be a Trojan horse if the enemy leaves it outside of the gate. Self-interest will keep the core tenets of Bitcoin, like the 21 million hard cap, in place during this process. It is not until Bitcoin has marinated fully into the financial system, political system, and culture that it will then be able to start eroding the power structures we so desperately want to see destroyed. Bitcoin is the long game, end quote. And I turned this into a meme as well, of meme of the week. It's just a couple slides earlier, of the guy putting on the clown face makeup with 2015, BTC isn't being hijacked. That's a conspiracy theory. 2021, institutions are taking over BTC, but it's not a hijacking. 2024, if you run your own node, a hijacking won't affect you. And 2025, BTC was hijacked, but it's a good thing. That's kind of the point they've got to, right? They're making a virtue of necessity. Their whole idea of, okay, we're infiltrating the institutions, the custodians are being involved. Don't worry, it's all just adoption going as intended. They have no idea, but they finally got to the point, at least, that they admit that it was hijacked and the whole mission has been overridden. Now, I wish them all the best of luck with. So this is the opposite of the CTV guys, right? This is not who was at OpNext. I didn't meet this guy at OpNext. This is the camp that think, let's just do nothing. It's all working. All we need to do is wait. It's self-interest, quote unquote, game theory is going to just take care of everything. The big banks will adopt it. We'll have 21 million as a sound money, and then we'll go into this golden age of humanity. Like, no, that would happen if you could ship non-custodial Celine wallets to 8 billion people, which is why we're working on BCH. But BTC, that is not going to happen. They've already become captured and entrenched fully. And after years of saying that wasn't what was happening, they're now saying, okay, we admit it. That is what's happening. That is what's happening. But it's a good thing, guys. It's a good thing. So get used to it. It's over, right? We don't need to argue with them anymore, right? Because now we agree.
Yeah, trying to wrap my head around it. I guess the last thing they're saying is if we, they'll keep 21 million hard cap for self-interest. Yeah, it's like, Do I think it's possible I could see a central government print their print their currency to play a game like that? Sure. But then once they have enough BTC and they have the keys, what do you think they're going to do with that? You think they're going to keep 21 million hard coded? Maybe you get like a small maybe in his best case scenario, it gets a small euphoria of that. And then let's say that if BTC were the world's currency at that point, they destroy their currency in favor of this one. They got wealthy because of it, and now they're not going to print BTC. Like I don't see that as possible. Like if you really think that through one step further, okay, let's say that like essentially I think that's what he's saying. That's the self-interest aspect of it from a state perspective. Do I have that wrong?
No, yeah, that's the logic. The idea is basically it's this conflation that people have. Like Bitcoin is for everyone. You can't stop people getting involved. Institution and custodians are going to be involved, et cetera, et cetera. That's all true. Yes, nobody can stop these people being involved in Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean, okay, it's all working. Let's hands off. Let's do nothing. They're just going to look after Bitcoin exactly, and it's all going to work out great. No, just because banks can be involved doesn't mean you say, please come in through the front door. This Trojan horse. That's like their cope, It's the Trojan horse when it's the other way around. It's like they're trying to draw you into the city. You got to be fighting back the other direction. You got to be trying to get out of the city. You got to be trying to keep it P2P cash, keep it non-custodial, keep it that way. And that's the same with BCH. That's why we talked about the bank runs, right? That's the whole point. Is we're going to force them to stay accountable with the community culture of constantly doing, not your keys, not your coins. But they're not doing that, and they're just going to get captured.
Yeah, so what he said there is, if the government takes over Bitcoin, I still wouldn't fork. If the government is
that's right.
Yeah. Exactly. So we're right back. We did all this work right back where we started.
Yes.
Give them the keys, it's a long game. That's a win. They have control of the money again, which the whole concept was to take the money away from them, and then that's the long game. We're right back where we started.
Yes, exactly.
Oh man, that is exactly the clown face is perfect.
But I mean, that's why it's like such a naive take, because there's, like you said, there's two ways where this works out. One is that, okay, there's never really any contentious upgrades to BTC. So the 21 million stays in terms of the 21 million that's running on the network, but there's so many custodians and institutions that basically nobody, end users are actually checking that 21 million. Maybe they're running their node, but they're not transacting day to day because 8 billion people are using whatever, Jamie Dimon's JP Morgan Chase Bitcoin wallet, where he just prints up a bunch of fake BTC, and that's what people are transacting. It's nothing to do with the on-chain, right? So there's no verification. So that's one possibility. And the other possibility is, as they get more and more captured, eventually, okay, well, let's just slip in a nice little inflation, Maybe that will also, Peter Todd, Demirage, he's already got that one cooking. That's being discussed, right? So it's either way. It's like they're not going to ship non-custodial Bitcoin BTC to 8 billion people.
That'll be the outcome, and you're essentially saying I trust these people and I wouldn't fork from that. That's the long game. It's truly incredible. Yeah. Oh man, that is yeah. We've really seen things change over the 5 years, Jeremy, as we've been doing this podcast.
Right. Exactly. If we I'm glad we've got it all on tape as well. That's the perfect thing about it, is anybody who wants to see the history just needs to go back and look. Just go watch the old episodes of the show. All the shit that we predict basically ends up coming true eventually, because we're just following the truth, and they're in their fake, propaganda bubble, right? But I think the clown thing, it's just degenerated. But now it's great. I love this because we're in a great world now. Because now, if I'm arguing with somebody on Twitter, I can just say, look, your own team admits that it was hijacked. Like there's no controversy about that anymore. Before there was, initially it was like, you're going to be the centralized PayPal and we're going to be the real P2P cash, right? Then it slowly all became, no, we're going to be digital gold. Okay, you guys are P2P cash, but you're irrelevant. And now it's become, okay, we were hijacked and captured by all the custodians, but we've got 21 million coins.
The government's going to take over and it's going to be okay.
That's right. So we're doing P2P cash still. So there's no need to argue. Like if somebody on BTC is saying, if you want to be a captured government coin, go ahead. Your own team admits that. And so just as long as we're all clear, it was never a problem if they wanted to do digital gold captured by the government. The only problem was that they spent so much time pretending that they were going to be Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. But now that's very clear. Now we're doing that and you're not doing that. So there's no need to argue about that element of it anymore. It's perfect.
Yeah. Voluntarism has a question. I did bring it up before about any updates on Mr. Veer, Roger Veer. I did see, and I shared it in my Instagram story, Aaron Day, if you're ever looking for Roger updates, seems to update daily, does a great job at that. But he, what I understand is on May 12th in California, there's going to be a motion to dismiss. So if you go there and you want to go out and, show support or protest the injustice, there is energy and effort. There will be people there to support. So if you're in stateside, you can get on a flight, or if you live in Southern California, I don't know the exact address, but go to Aaron Day's Twitter. He's making a movement to do that. If you want to see how Roger's doing, but on May 12th, we'll see if he's granted dismissal or not in California State.
Yeah, there we go. Hopefully, there might be some more updates then. Maybe at BLISS after that, after we do that. So yeah, all the best to him in his ongoing fight, to get free. Gosh, the life journey that he's been on. It's pretty hard to fathom, really, But
yeah. Speaking of hijacking, right?
Well, that's right. Exactly. And it's just like all the dominoes. He released that in 2024. That was then super popular. Nobody has debunked it or done any good pushback against it besides just slandering him and saying Roger's an evil shitcoin. Nobody actually did a breakdown that showed that he lied or that there was any nothing. And so then you have that, and then you have, what do you know? Basically a year later, or 9 months later, whatever. Boom! It was April last year. I think the hijacking Bitcoin came out. Then here you have it. Now they're admitting it. Okay, we were hijacked. So there's nothing like an idea whose time has come, right? So great to see. Okay, we got one more slide. I wanted to get onto. I think this is also a banger in the context of everything else we're doing. Ethereum is really in a mess. They're having a very bad time over there in the Ethereum community. So Ethereum dominance has fallen to 7.2%, which you can see on this chart is basically down and to the right. Now, of course, that's much higher than BCH. So, okay, glass houses, stone throwing, etc. But regardless, they have fallen from above 20% dominance down to just 7% dominance, at the same time as BTC has been putting in a good surge up to 63% dominance. So their price ratio is getting crushed, ETH BTC ratio, and that has prompted their community to get stressed. What are we doing, guys? Like, what the hell's going on? The ETH Foundation was asked to reshuffle their leadership in response, like we need to do something differently. And then Vitalik kind of gave the game away and said, I'm going to just unilaterally decide how that works. So after so many years of we're so decentralized, well, it turns out Vitalik was actually just kind of running the show. We've covered all that on the podcast before. We're also seeing things fall apart in terms of like David Hoffman, who I've criticized on the show regularly before. He also, after so many years, ETH is the greatest, ETH is the future, ETH is ultrasound money. He's now started coming out with this stuff basically like, well, if Ethereum is not supporting builders, then we have to look elsewhere. I've started doing, I'm doing podcasts more about other things. If the ecosystem can't pay us or do this or do that, then people are going to move to other chains, etc. So it's really just like a case of when the going gets tough, suddenly the chips are down. Suddenly the belief in the mission, that was all just, chat. That was all just virtue signaling. So good luck to him with that. And on top of that, things are maybe going from bad to worse. Justin Drake's beam chain idea, which I've already said on the show many times, is a big technological boondoggle. Like, they're the opposite of the BTC guys. The BTC guys can't ship a change. The ETH guys will just ship changes for the point of changing shit, right? They're not, because they're actually going to be good. So anyway, he wants to do that, and Vitalik has also suggested that they rework not only, I think I want to get the right way around, the beam chain is for the consensus layer. They also want to rework the execution layer with something called risk V. So he's like, the EVM is not working. Let's get the EVM out of there. Let's get a new thing in instead of that. So they've 2 potentially 5-year plus technical engineering reworks of the whole of Ethereum being proposed onto their roadmap at the same time as their community is like in revolt because they're all getting poor, and the BTC guys are laughing at them and saying, we fucking told you, you super shitcoiners. What a mess. What is going on here? Any thoughts on this?
It's a little tough for me because I have I'm not very sure. I can have a soft spot for Ethereum and Vitalik for a couple of reasons. One, I thought it was rather brave of Vitalik years ago, kind of wanting to do things and BTC getting shut down, going on his own. I thought that was admirable. I think he also did a great job showing, with Ethereum, we could do other things and people use it and create a lot of value. Thirdly, like it was my best investment probably in my life, Ethereum. So that, and I think I've done a good job separating my emotions towards like an investment that went well versus what, I believe is right. And then probably fourthly, Vitalik was always, especially in the early days, very empathetic towards the big block fight and, cheered for us. So, watching them go what they're going through, they're just having to go through the market. The business is tough. Building these tools are tough. And at the end of the day, that's, if you're investing in this space, you should really look and understand, Ethereum from everything from the outside, 4 years ago looked incredible. And this is a very technical space and, new type of economy in a sense that they're, what is causing it? I think you said it correctly that they're shipping so many changes because there's fundamental issue flaws with probably the core base layer that is just making it difficult to grow and scale, and definitely the gas fees moved users away, certainly to Solana, and looking forward to BCH getting more involved in DeFi, and I think that's part of being in crypto, and is it probably encouraged us to build out a DeFi ecosystem because what Ethereum proved. So yeah, they're having a tough time. It's tough to watch them fail from a bit of a perspective, but I think at some point, as you see what's happening with, you still got to keep Solana in the ring, and then I think in knowing what BCH is capable of, it seems somewhat inevitable. I don't know how they can fix it or if it's possible, but certainly having a pre-mined coin with a foundation picking and choosing things with kind of a strong central actor seems to be very problematic.
Yeah. So like you say, I'm not bullish on them turning it around. And because now they're in a bit of instead of a virtuous cycle, they're in a vicious cycle, right? As the price goes down, people start to panic and think, this is not unfamiliar to BCH, right? It's the same reason. Why was there the BSV split, and why was it the XCC split and stuff? Because people are like, I want to do this. I'm the one who should be, giving the right direction. What we're doing isn't working. Like, when something's not working, obviously you need to change something. But then the problem is, in a decentralized ecosystem, who is going to decide what to change and who's going to follow that and think it's a good idea or not, really. So I feel like they might be in a bad spot because they're now at 7% dominance. If it just keeps declining, they just fall further and further out of the race. And as their money goes down, as their market cap goes down, then they have less resources, so it becomes even more difficult. And then other people just sell out of the ecosystem, just quit and say, fuck it, I'm out of here, which is why this whole thing with David, quitting, I just find so funny, because when ETH is on the way up, he's there big shilling. Oh, ETH is the best. It's ultrasound. We're going to take over everything. And then once it's on the way down, that's when the faith is tested, and nope, test failed. Straight off to, oh, well, there's the rest of the ecosystem, and I've got some BTC anyway, so at least my BTC bags are fine. All this stuff, like, and he's just a bellwether. You know, if you have a lot of people like that in your ecosystem, once things start going down, all those rats are off the sinking ship, and then suddenly you're in real deep water. You know?
Yeah, I mean, probably 4 years ago, I didn't think it was improbable that Ethereum could actually even flip BTC, and I wouldn't have minded it really either. But it's crazy how far away it's gotten, because it was really challenging at a point. But like you said, they're in this. It's very hard to get out of a capitulating phase like this because everything just compounds on top of it. So yeah, I who's next? If they get not dethroned from number 2 or their large market cap, you'll probably see Solana get a big crack, and then after that, going down the chain, Cardano never really seems to ship anything useful. But BCH is
that is a good point. That is a good point, Ryan. I had not considered this. So the state of play, BTC is 1.8 trillion. Okay. Number 2, ETH, 217 billion. Tether at number 3, 147 billion. So 217 to 147 billion. That's not a big gap. If ETH falls a little bit more, and the Tether, printers, what's his name, Paolo Arduino or whatever, he just fires it up, quick 20 bill, right? He gets a quick 20 bill in there. Then if Tether flips ETH, and Tether is then number 2, and ETH is number 3, the psychological impact of that across the entire crypto space will be enormous. That would be so huge. Like, everybody would be like, ETH is fucking dead. If stable coins are the future, if they're taking out ETH just with one centralized guy and a print button, like, that would be crazy. It'd be crazy. After that is Ripple at 130. So then once you're falling, you can quickly fall. Yeah.
Well, I was speaking from the perspective of like rising in the DeFi ecosystem. Definitely Solana's positioning themselves to get a big crack, and they'll get tested. And then you got Cardano, then really BCH. Who are the top DeFi chains out there? I
You
could
got
be wrong.
Binance, Tron, Avalanche. I
Who's
mean,
gonna
there's a couple in there, but
yeah, who's gonna trust Justin's son? Avalanche might get
I had not even considered that at all, though, that they might fall out of number 2 in the market cap, which is the scoreboard that everybody uses. It's only 217 billion to 147 billion. They are genuinely in danger. That would be huge. I don't know how many years Ethereum has been number 2. Probably the last coin to flip ETH was BCH, right?
Yeah.
In 2017, very briefly, it was number 2, and ETH was number 3. So ETH has been number 2 since that. So, and even that was only a very, very brief and unusual moment. So
yeah,
from like 2014 or 2015, I guess, when their pre-sale had been announced, 2015, they've been number 2 for basically a decade with only one very minor blip in there. If they fall out of that, a lot of things are going to get rethought. Because damn. Jet, any thoughts on this? I'm actually really, really curious. What do you think? Would they fall out of number 2? Is that going to shake things up?
I mean, yeah, but I don't think it'll be good. Like, I think Ethereum collapsing will end up kind of like if Tether did collapse, like, it's going to wipe out a lot of people and turn people off of crypto altogether.
Yeah.
Good point.
I don't really have too much thought on this, though. I don't ever use Ethereum, so.
But that's where I think, BCH is kind of well prepared, because we're fighting against the whole industry and always have been, basically. So if Ethereum's going down, okay, that's bad in an indirect sense. But as long as our ecosystem is all insulated from that, like, we're not infected with all this, like, if they screw up, all their EVM tooling, all their whatever is going to suffer. But we don't have that. We've just built all our own stuff. It's a UTXO chain. We've built everything ourselves. our projects are not linked up to all their DeFi oracles and whatever other stuff they have, right? So in that sense, BCH is probably in a prime position to shine, whereas other competitors maybe would be more affected, as the ETH ship sinks.
Yeah, if they
I don't
could
know.
delay the collapse, like, until the VM limits upgrade, that'd be fantastic.
Well, this is a long, slow process. It's not likely that they're going to be plummeting down the market cap anytime soon. But over the next few months, or by the time we're doing this episode next year, maybe, who knows? We'll have to check back in on this ongoing narrative. But it's very, very interesting. The winds of change are blowing. Damn.
A tough year.
All right, let's.
Just last comment there. So it sounds like they're burning and their ultrasound money like that didn't work.
Well, that's part of the problem too, isn't it? Because as we've discussed on this show, so the ETH inflation is now positive again, right? So in January, they once again became net inflationary since the merge. So they had the merge September 2022, and then they were burning some coins, but then the fees went up, so less people were transacting. So then the inflation was outweighing the burn. So then the supply was going up again. And so now they're at 197,000, nearly 200,000 ETH more than they were at the burn, right? So that's going to at the merge. So that's going to keep just slowly ticking up, inflating their currency, which is just causing more problems on top of everything. Because one, everybody says, okay, ultrasound money, that was just a bullshit narrative that we couldn't deliver. Two, you have people saying we need to change this. Then there's people, we're going to change the staker rewards. Are we going to tweak this? Are we going to tweak that? And that just makes the problem worse, because then everybody's arguing about that instead of, attacking some other way to fix the problem.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, God, could I have like a Luna moment? Or there's just a.
That would be a bit of a stretch. Well, what we're seeing, it's an interesting analogy, because Luna was like a fast version of this. This is like Luna, but 100,000 times slower, because Luna was whenever they were minting the coins to like prop up the price, it was fine as long as the price kept going up, because then you had more collateral to mint more. But then when, like you say, when it's the downwards trend started, that was it. It was all over, because it just instantly just died, because suddenly you could cash. Everyone was trying to farm those yields. And then once the 20% yields went away, everybody was then cashing out their Luna, which was then burning the supply. And then the price would just, drop like a rock, right? So in a way, I would need to think it all through clearly. But you're right. This is kind of analogous, where if ETH loses its on-chain traction, which it already has, and the inflation continues rising, then that's just going to hurt their market price, which is going to drop them down the market cap, which is going to mean less people will be attracted to their ecosystem. And it's basically Luna in slow motion in a way.
Scary.
Well, scary for them. I don't have any ETH. Fuck.
Like Jet said, it's scary for the ecosystem a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah. It's bad for crypto as a whole. And, not that I'm out there wishing anybody to lose their money, but definitely did tell them, especially David. But they can all come to join us in BCH if they hopefully one way or another they can figure out. Because it's like they were correct about their criticisms of BTC at least some of the time. And it was cool that they invented DeFi and they had a lot of good ideas. Just bring that to BCH, where, we didn't screw up the monetary policy and invest all our hopes in a centralized pre-mine foundation and stuff. We've already done the hard part. Like, you can just come and be part of the fun part where we succeed and where everything's easy to build and lots of money floods into the scene. So just get involved. Okay. All right. Message to the community. What does the BCH community need to hear?
Wow. Yeah, I knew this question was coming. Yeah, it's. I think the sentiment away from this episode is just continuing to build bridges. Be inviting in. We need people, but I think we're doing that. I think this is probably the most positive I've been on BCH. And in the episode, I have to go back and look at them. But like I've been in BCH a long time, and I've never been happier. I've never had more BCH too. So in terms of showing my bullishness towards where we're at, and just really seeing like it almost makes me want to look and kind of still looking, are we doing everything right? And we're certainly not, but it seems like we're doing a lot of things right now. And just keep building, come to events like BLISS, you get involved, you use it, you get onboard someone to a wallet, show them, I just did a lot of that on Thursday or Friday. You show them how easy it is. And yeah, in terms of, I think the challenge now, and hopefully Cash Tokens is the answer, is just the network effect that we still need. Because a lot of people that I set up a Bitcoin Cash, they've never even heard of it. They certainly heard of Bitcoin. How we advance the network effect is going to be the next challenge, because we have so much infrastructure, right? And maybe the is it the chicken or the egg? As infrastructure continues to improve, is just I don't know the answer to it, but continue spreading the network effect, give someone some BCH, and how we market that. I don't have the answer. I've been trying for a long time, and not saying that I haven't done positive things, but I feel like that's going to really allow us to. I'm not sure how we overcome the network effect yet. It's probably in everything we're doing, and it just takes time. Just be patient, and that's maybe a message I need to hear myself.
Amazing.
So
okay, all right, yeah, I agree. I think we're mostly doing the right. That's where a lot of it comes. Are we doing everything perfect? No, but I think we're doing more right than wrong, which is why things are turning around. Growth is like before BCH was losing. It was just falling down the ranks, getting less and less traction, more and more hate. People not having as much money, etc. That's all because even then it was still doing some things right, but it was just doing too much wrong that you just couldn't rise with all that weight weighing it down, And now I feel like it's the other way around. Yeah, that's right. Now I feel like maybe we don't have everything right, but I think we're getting a lot right. I think the DeFi ecosystem stuff is doing really well. I think the technology we have at the protocol level and stuff is amazing. I think we can continue that with good discussions. So I encourage everyone to go bitcoincashresearch.com, get involved in discussing the chips for next year or the year after, or propose your own chip if you've got a good idea. That's all going great. I think our outreach and positivity has made a difference on social media. Now it's starting to make a difference in person. I think we've just put up an amazing amount of proof of work. One thing over the last day or two, I've been arguing with some of these Monero guys. And that's maybe a bit excessive on my part. But anyway, one of the things that strikes me about that is they don't really have any arguments. They've kind of got to the point that we've previously had with other communities, where it just comes down to, I like Monero, is basically what they're like. Once you discuss each individual point, it just comes down to, I like Monero, I prefer it for these reasons. And that's like, okay, but that's not objective, and some people will prefer a different thing, And basically, while those guys are correct that, okay, we have layer 1 privacy and it's better today, like when you say to them, okay, we're building the tech so that in maybe a year or a year and a bit, it'll be possible to do a copy of Monero on BCH, and then it'll take a year or two for the technology to all get integrated. But like, just a heads up, guys, in 3 or 4 years, your chain's going to be obsolete. Like, we will have replaced not only your entire coin, every privacy coin. And once you tell them that, they don't really have an answer except, well, it needs to be layer 1. No, it doesn't. Nobody cares. Like, if we have a contract and you can have Monero running as a BCH cash token, who's going to care whether it's every single transaction or not. There's no reason for that. And the benefit is that then we can have a DeFi ecosystem. We can have every other coin. You can swap it for MUSD. You can do whatever that you can't do on Monero. So anyway, the point is, in arguing with them, I really got the sense of like, this shows that BCH is doing so much right, because for so long, I mean, BCH and Monero are fairly complementary, and I'm always saying, you know, maybe that's my second favorite cryptocurrency, but the end result that they're now getting upset about BCH. When have they been upset about BCH before? Never. Now they're upset about it. That just when your competition is getting upset about you, that means you're doing a lot right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Shout out to our. Go on. Do you want to say something about it?
Yeah, just I think it's just, you know, all you can say is like, hey, I'm just telling you these things are coming, you know, and just to have it in your site, you know. And Monero is great. Monero offers a lot of people a lot of, you know, financial privacy right now, which is a wonderful thing. But this is also coming that you should be aware of. You know, I think that's at least, you know, with everything that we're going to see happen with these markets evolving, whether it's Ethereum's DeFi system going down or any other thing, you know, we can just say like, hey, we're creating lifeboats, you know, to stay involved in crypto and the overall mission, especially with a cash coin like Monero. These are lifeboats and alternatives, and or maybe there's a world where both of them serve roles in, you know. And you could, right now, there's how many currencies in the world that different countries have. That, you know, do I think BCH has opportunity to become the most dominant? Absolutely, but there'll probably be others that exist within that world too, you know. But maybe not. Maybe not if these.
Maybe that, but that's they're never going to like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you, and that's where you get, you know, that's why I'm always saying to them, like, is nobody cares if you want to have your, like, there's a certain point where you're discussing where they move from talking about the merits of the two coins to they get emotionally defensive about themselves, and they say, but I like Monero and I need my privacy, and like it goes from these are the two options to I. And at that point, it's like, yes, nobody cares. Like, I'm not here to convince you that BCH is better than Monero. If you like Monero, if you're obsessed with the need for layer one privacy, if you're, I don't know, drug running in, you know, some sketchy border area of the world today, right now, and you need a solution, and Monero is what the other guy accepts, that's fine. Nobody minds about that. Use Monero. Have a great time. All I'm telling you is that, yeah, like you said, like, we are coming to I feel it's the same with the BTC guys. Like, you just tell them, like, we are coming to replace you. And if that wasn't a genuine threat in their mind, they would just laugh. But instead they get angry because they realize, like, there's no counter proposal. You say, okay, great, you guys have better privacy. We're working on solutions and we're going to replace that. We're going to have all the same stuff you have. And then do they say, yeah, but you guys have DeFi, and you guys have more exchange listings, and you guys have, mining infrastructure with SHA-256. We're going to come and replace that. No, they don't say that. They don't, because one, they're not thinking about it, and two, because they can't. There's technological reasons and community reasons why they can't do that. So, yeah, of course they're not going to like it if we just say we're coming to obsolete you, and we mean it. And we're not lying. So I can see why they're upset. But yeah, there will always be a place for them to be, like, you know, people who want to be in their treehouse and lock themselves up. No, nobody allowed in my treehouse. Okay, you're king of your treehouse. It has the layer one privacy that you cling to so much. But the world doesn't care. The world is just going to pick the better option and move on. And yeah, that's the reality that they're facing down. So I do feel a little bad for them in that sense. Anyway, good luck to them on figuring out that we're going to overtake them, because, yeah, telling me that they prefer Monero, that ain't going to cut it. That's not going to help you solve your problems. Okay, our FundMe contributors, like I said, go to fundme.cash. You can fund the episodes of the podcast, and also Celine. We're going to give a huge shout out to Marcelo Majamalu, Funding Father, Molecular, the show we love, at Cash Stamps, BCH for the win, Cash Dragon, RealBitcoin.cash, Murray Saw, great work, Burnin' a Cattle, Bitcoin is cash, Caps, I
Mhm.
love that. Milton Friedman, Emergent Reasons, Stay Grounded, Go Big. Kanach, BCH is the Michael Jordan of crypto. Doromus, keep building. You have full support from many. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Our donators, you're excellent. And our patrons, Ricky and HP, as well as our sponsors, General Protocols. Check out bchball.com. Start guide FAQs and links at bitcoincashpodcast.com. If you're a new listener, episode 85, try at Selene Wallet at selene.cash. That will convince you to send us some funding because you want more of that excellent software development. We've done final shout outs. Ryan.
Oh boy. Everyone that's helped with BLISS, everyone that's coming, thank you. You guys definitely, if no one came, we would not do it. And that we're going to outperform last year. So shout outs to the community for that. I think it's going to be a critical cornerstone for BCH development, bringing people together. I thought we laid that out pretty well in our video. If you've not checked out that video yet, I believe it's on mine and Jeremy's YouTube. What is BCH BLISS, what you can expect, and why it's important for the ecosystem. If you still have time, May 12th to the 15th, come on over, be a part of it. And thank you. Just a thank you to everyone that has bought a ticket and that helps develop in BCH. I'm learning more and more over time, like how critical and important these events are for the long-term health of the ecosystem. So thank you guys.
Amazing. Chat, any final shout outs?
My shout out would be to Milan. What is his? I want to say Mira
Milan
Hurley.
Reid.
Yeah.
Mira Hurley.
Yeah, for making Nano GPT, and mostly because it's made it easier for me to onboard people to cryptocurrency, especially since my day job is in like generative AI stuff now.
Nice.
Being able to be like, here's a thing that we can use, and it's privacy focused, not subscription based. It's all microtransactions, and you can swap models out on the fly, and it's nice, and it's been useful.
He's going to be at BLISS, so everybody come along and hang with him in person. Going to be awesome. And my shout out goes to Charlie for organizing Op Next. He did an amazing job. You can follow him on Twitter at CB Spears, and also James O'Byrne at James OB, otherwise known as James SOB on this show. I told him that. He laughed. He thought it was funny. He was a legend. He was very, very cool to meet in person, and he also was very interested in what's happening in BCH, so he might be listening to the show. And finally, to MicroStrategy, I've got my little strategy Bitcoin cup that we got from the bar there in the headquarters of MicroStrategy. So that's it, doing a little bit of cultural anthropology involved in their stuff. And everyone should come to BLISS because it's going to be awesome, and you can be a part of BCH history and meet all the people who are making it happen, or at least some of them. That's it. Thank you everybody for listening. Until next time. Oh shit, I forgot to one thing. I forgot to answer. I forgot to say our final song is Big V. Big V made his mate made another song like the Jessica Freedom Boy song that we had last year. We've got one for Velma, so that's going to be our outro song. Shout out to him. Maybe unofficial BLISS anthem. See if you like it. All right.
There we go.
Velma's the smart one.
Velma, my bare metal baby, Satoshi's granddaughter, says the state won't save me. She said, you can save yourself by getting free with permissionless money, no KYC. I don't know what to do. This world is turning blue. Yeah. sanctions and inflation, and killing in the news. People literally dying, cause of money we can't use. Well, she got the tech, she's a superhero breed, translocate around the world, my bank account free. Now I see some hope, more than just politics and code. She's all over the world. She's my Bitcoin cash girl. She's all over the world. She's my Bitcoin cash girl. Yes, she is. Streamline a virtual machine, bare metal just like a dream. Such a sexy efficiency, smarter contracts and privacy. She's all over the world. She's my Bitcoin cash girl. She's all over the world. She's my Bitcoin cash girl like a dream.
Download